subscribe, like the video, and, if possible, join Patreon. But if you don't have much money, you can support the channel by watching the novels on euroaudiobooks.com. Remember that you can participate in the polls so that your favorite novel gets published for free.
Aburame Shino couldn't help but emphasize her presence. Oh, hello, Shino. However, as always, Aburame Shino's emphasis was still fruitless. Uzumaki Naruto just greeted him, and then focused his attention on Izayoi. He grinned and said, Izayoi, you guys are here to take part in the Chunin exam after all. This time, I won't lose to you. Oh, Izayoi also became interested and asked, looking at your confident look, did you learn ninjutsu from Kakashi? If this is the case, then the butterfly effect will be really big. The original work avoided an imbalance in the protagonist's power, but it resulted in Hatake Kakashi being badly criticized. The copy ninja, who mastered thousands of ninjutsu, was reluctant to teach even the lowest level C-grade wind escape to his teacher's son. This is even though Uzumaki Naruto has already learned to climb trees. But there was nothing that could be done about it. Uzumaki Naruto had already mastered the multiple shadow clone technique. With that enormous amount of chakra, even if he had only learned one C-rank wind style, major breakthrough, his strength would still be among the strongest among the genin. The protagonist's inspirational story could not continue. Hundreds and thousands of shadow clones, all using wind style, great breakthrough at the same time. The power is definitely more outrageous than Uchiha Madara's great fire annihilation. You and Sasuke, just wait and see. Uzumaki Naruto rubbed his nose and said proudly, I will definitely surprise you when the time comes. Riddler, get out of Konoha. Izayoi complained, but attracted strange looks from Hinata, Aburame Shino, and Uchiha Sasuke. Their eyes seemed to be saying, how dare you talk about others? Post views. For Chapter 53, Izayoi's little brother, CH53. After chatting for a while in the corridor, Class 8 and Class 7 went up to the third floor together, submitted their applications, received their seat numbers, and prepared to go downstairs to the teaching building. In the stairwell, Uchiha Sasuke asked Izayoi, have you noticed those guys these days? Izayoi nodded. He knew that Uchiha Sasuke was talking about those ninjas from other villages who were secretly investigating them. As the top students of this class and the orphans of the Uchiha clan, Izayoi and Uchiha Sasuke are the focus of attention. In the past few days, there were indeed quite a few people wandering outside of Izayoi's house. But since they didn't go too far, Izayoi didn't care. Have you ever met a guy carrying a gourd on his back? Uchiha Sasuke continued to ask. No, he's very strong. A strong enemy. As if recalling something, Uchiha Sasuke's mouth curled up slightly and said, this year's Chunin exam is really full of monsters. I can't wait to fight them. Then you may get what you want soon. Izayoi couldn't help but smile as if he had discovered something. Just as I arrived at the lobby at the back door of the comprehensive building, a voice came from behind. Please wait a moment. Upon hearing this voice, Sakura Haruno from Class 7's expression suddenly froze. It's you again with your thick eyebrows. What do you want to do? Uzumaki Naruto pointed at Rock Lee on the second floor balcony and shouted. Rock Lee jumped down from above, landed steadily, and then took a physical stance, looking at Izayoi with a serious expression, and said, my name is Rock Lee, and I want to challenge the first place among the newcomers this year. Please fight with me, Izayoi. Challenge Izayoi? Team 7 was slightly surprised. He seems to be Niji's teammate. Hinata frowned slightly, and her eyes became sharp again, as if she had misunderstood something. The bug told me that he smelled faintly of blood. Aburame Shino said calmly, his strength is not simple. Izayoi was also a little surprised. He didn't expect that Rock Lee didn't come to challenge Uchiha Sasuke, but chose to challenge him. Thinking of the 8 Gates Ninjutsu, a magical skill that is as famous as the Flying Thunder God technique and the Impure World Reincarnation technique, Izayoi became a little interested. But after glancing in a certain direction, this interest immediately disappeared. If it was an all-out battle without restrictions, Izayoi would also like to experience the power of the 8 Gates. But now Izayoi said to Uchiha Sasuke, Sasuke, you go ahead. Uchiha Sasuke was slightly stunned. Then he recalled the scene where Rock Lee blocked a kick from him and the gate guarding Chunin, and immediately became eager to fight, and nodded. Okay, I'll meet him. Seeing that it was Uchiha Sasuke who came out, Rock Lee frowned and looked at Izayoi and asked, "What do you mean?" Without waiting for Izayoi to speak, Uchiha Sasuke made a deflated gesture, pointed his thumb at himself, and said, "You can challenge Izayoi only if you beat me. If you can't even beat me, there's no need to humiliate yourself." Rock Lee suddenly realized, so that's how it is. You are Izayoi's younger brother. Who is his little brother? Uchiha Sasuke roared loudly, and then his eyes turned into scarlet Tamagatama Sharingan, and he said coldly, "Stop talking nonsense and start." These eyes staring into Uchiha Sasuke's eyes. Rock Lee was slightly stunned, and then he said with a fierce fighting spirit, "So you're the last descendant of the Uchiha clan? Well, then let me experience the Sharingan of the Genius clan." After finishing speaking, Rock Lee introduced himself with a serious expression. "My name is Rock Lee. Please give me your guidance. Stop talking nonsense and make quick decisions." Uchiha Sasuke rushed directly towards Rock Lee. Class 7 and Class 8 were leaning against the pillars in the hall, watching the battle. Looking at the figure that was enlarged in front of his eyes, Rock Lee's body tensed up. The moment Uchiha Sasuke threw a punch, Rock Lee's figure suddenly disappeared out of thin air. The body instant technique? No, it's different from the body instant technique. Uchiha Sa was slightly stunned when his punch missed. Then he quickly released his perception. The next second, Uchiha Sasuke seemed to sense something, turned his head to look to the side, and at the same time raised his right hand, and his forearm successfully blocked the kicking calf. Then Uchiha Sasuke's expression was distorted, and his eyes were filled with horror. Such a powerful force. Could this guy be in just 2 seconds of distraction? Rock Lee had already retracted his calves, and with incredible flexibility, he somersaulted in front of Uchiha Sasuke, supporting himself with his hands like a street dancer, and did a Thomas full spin, kicking Uchiha Sasuke in the face from bottom to top. Uchiha Sasuke blocked with both hands, but was still kicked into the air by the powerful kick. After landing, his hands were slightly numb. Looking at Rock Lee, who stood up again and took a starting stance, Uchiha Sasuke said, "What you just did was high-speed movement, and with such power, you are a physical ninja." "Yes, I'm a taijutsu ninja." Rock Lee nodded honestly and praised. "It is said that the Sharingan can see through all ninjutsu, illusions, and physical techniques. It is indeed worthy of its reputation. But what I didn't expect was that you were able to see through my movements and your body could barely cope with my speed. You are indeed a member of that genius clan." Reluctantly, Haha, Uchiha Sasuke's double Magatama Sharingan turned a circle, and he said with a disdainful smile, "I'll return this sentence to you." After he finished speaking, Uchiha Sasuke disappeared out of thin air. Seeing this scene, Liluaka's eyes widened immediately. The sound of breaking air rang in his ears. Rock Lee turned his head and looked at the calf kicking at him. He subconsciously raised his arm to block it. With a bang, the calf and forearm just collided with each other, and a figure flipped to the ground, supported himself with his hands, did a Thomas full spin, and kicked at Rock Lee in the face from below. Subconsciously blocking with both hands, Rock Lee was kicked into the air and flew 2 meters before landing. Looking at Uchiha Sasuke, who stood up again, imitated his previous movements, and took the starting stance, Rock Lee's eyes trembled. Class 7 on the pillar's side was stunned. "Am I dazzled?" Uzumaki Naruto rubbed his eyes and said in disbelief, "Arrogant Sasuke, did you use the same move as the thick eyebrow just now? Wow, so awesome. You're worthy of being Sasuke-kun." Haruno Sakura clasped her hands together and said with a crazy look on her face, "Is that the legendary Sharingan copy?" Aburame Shino also said in amazement, with just one glance, "The enemy's actions are copied. No wonder the Uchiha clan Sharingan is known as the bloodline limit that is invincible in one-on-one situations." Only Izayoi and Hinata remained expressionless, watching the scene with a smile. No one knows Uchiha Sasuke's strength better than them. If he was still such a rubbish after being taught by Izayoi for so many years, Izayoi, as a teacher, would have committed seppuku long ago. Post views for Chapter 54. Might Guy's entry, don't fight anymore, ch 54. If this is all your strength, then I'm afraid you can't challenge Izayoi. Looking at the shocked Rock Lee, Uchiha Sasuke seemed to be very proud, with a smug expression on his face. Rock Lee slowly lowered his head, his forehead and eyes covered by shadows. He silently untied the bandage on his hand and murmured, "Teacher Kai, I'm sorry. I may have to break this taboo." Because Liloaka raised his head suddenly, his eyes were firm, and he said, "I must prove myself to this person in front of me." In an instant, Rock Lee's entire aura changed. Just as the two were about to start a new round, there was a bang and a cloud of white smoke appeared out of thin air next to Rock Lee. When the white mist dissipated, a man wearing the same green tights as Rock Lee, except with an extra green vest, appeared in the hall stepping on a red turtle. He also struck an eye-catching pose and said with a smile, "Really, you guys are so youthful." Thicker eyebrows. Seeing this person, Uzumaki Naruto and Haruno Sakura were instantly petrified. Uchiha Sasuke also lost all his will to fight in an instant, and the corners of his mouth twitched. Even Hinata and Aburame Shino looked surprised, thinking that Rock Lee and Might Guy were father and son. Only Izayoi was looking at Might Guy intently. There were two bubbles floating around Might Guy. Both of them were purple. Master of Taijutsu. Purple, shadow level qualification. Purple, just like Rock Lee, who looks like a bigger version of him. Might Guy's attributes are also one level higher than Rock Lee's, and like Deidara, they are both double purple. But Izayoi knew very well that the normal Might Guy was not a Kaga-level strongman. However, the system's assessment of his qualifications was still purple shadow level, which meant that the level of strength that Might Guy had once achieved was also included in the assessment. Might Guy, who opened the 7 gates, is indeed a leader in the shadow level. The 8 gates of ninjutsu was indeed, as he had imagined, a magical skill that could change one's destiny. Are you guys Kakashi and Kurenai's subordinates? You're so youthful. While Izayoi was lost in thought, Might Guy had already finished scolding Rock Lee and came to Team 7 and Team 8 to greet them. Team 7 was still staring at Might Guy's eyebrows, with the corners of their mouth and eyes twitching. Izayoi said politely, "Gai Jonin." Seeing this, Hinata and Aburame Shino followed suit and said politely, "Gai Jonin. Do you know me too?" "Ah, that's true. After all, Kakashi and I are called eternal rivals by the village." Might Guy gave a thumbs up and grinned. "He's actually an elite Jonin, like Kakashi-sensei? You must be kidding. I can't tell at all." Team 7 was shocked by Might Guy's words. But looking at the other party's exaggerated movements and expressions, he couldn't help but question it. Although they had never seen Hatake Kakashi take action, they knew about Hatake Kakashi's battle record through Izayoi's words. "You are so rude. What Mr. Kai said is true." Seeing the look in Team 7's eyes, Rock Lee immediately shouted, "Might Guy is one of Konoha's ace fighters and a well-known taijutsu expert in the ninja world. He is a classmate of Kakashi and teacher Kurenai, and they are indeed rivals." Izayoi spoke up to prove for Might Guy, then pointed to the clock on the wall and said, "Also, the exam is almost up, and we'll be late if we don't leave now." I almost forgot about the exam. Might Guy, who wanted to show off his skills to prove himself, couldn't help but touch Rock Lee's head and said with a smile, "Lee, you should be punished for breaking the taboo. But now the situation is special. The punishment will continue after you finish the Chunin exam." "Yes, Teacher Kai." Lee Loaka immediately stood at attention and shouted, "Looking at this strange master and apprentice pair, Class 7 has become numb. Then we'll go ahead." Izayoi said a polite goodbye to Team 8 and walked out of the complex building. Class 7 followed closely behind. On the way to the teaching building, Uzumaki Naruto approached Uchiha Sasuke and said with a smirk, "Sasuke, when did you become Izayoi's younger brother?" "The tail end. Do you want to die?" Uchiha Sasuke, who originally wanted to show off to Izayoi how well he used his lightning release chakra to stimulate cells, suddenly had a red sign appear on his forehead and looked at Uzumaki Naruto with murderous eyes. Uzumaki Naruto was not afraid at all. Instead, he raised his hand and pointed forward and said, "Sasuke, you go." Uchiha Sasuke's face turned red instantly, and he clenched his fists and rushed over to beat Uzumaki Naruto violently. Uzumaki Naruto also fought back without giving in. Then the two rivals staged a bizarre scene, fighting each other while slowly moving forward. "Stop fighting. Stop fighting." Haruno Sakura was trying to stop the fight, looking worried. The second personality in my heart was cheering loudly for Uchiha Sasuke. "Let's speed up." Seeing the strange looks from the candidates around her, Aburame Shino, who had a very low sense of presence, made a rare suggestion. Izayoi and Hinata agreed and silently quickened their pace. It's such a disgrace to be walking around with three idiots. After a while, Class 7 and Class 8 came to the outside of the examination room of the teaching building. In the corridor outside the door, there were three figures sitting on a bench. Kyum-sensei, Kakashi Jounin. Izayoi walked over with Hinata and Aburame Shino, greeted Kurenai and Hitaki Kakashi, then glanced at Asuma Sarutobi, who was next to Kurenai, enduring the urge to smoke and looking like he had lost all hope in life. "I am very pleased to see that all of you are here." Kurenai Yuhi smiled slightly, and then introduced Asuma Sarutobi next to the 8th team. "This is the instructor of the 10th team. His name is Asuma Sarutobi. You can call him Asuma Jonin or Asuma Teacher." Asuma Jonin, led by Izayoi, Team 8 greeted Asuma Sarutobi. "Hello." Asuma Sarutobi also smiled and said, "I heard from Ino and Shikamaru about you. You are ranked first among the new students in this class. You also have two top students who are always in the top 5. Is really lucky. Thank you for the compliment, Asuma Jonin." Izayoi smiled modestly. On the other hand, Hitaki Kakashi has also confessed to Team 7 why they, the guiding Jonin, are here. Aburame Shino, who had been listening nearby, said calmly, "So, if there are only 2 of us or 1 of us coming, we won't be able to take part in the Chunin exam?" "Good." Shirihong nodded and smiled. "Do you remember what I told you when I introduced myself? Until any of you are promoted to Chunin, I will be the one leading you in missions for a long time to come. Until one of you becomes a Chunin and is recognized by the instructing Jonin in the village, you will be able to lead your teammates on missions as a leader. If you don't get the recognition of your teammates and don't have the courage to lead your teammates to complete the task, then you are not qualified to be a team leader. The Chunin exam has already begun the moment you received your application." Hearing this, Aburame Shino and Hinata were slightly enlightened. Seeing Izayoi, who remained calm, Kurenai Yuhi stood up and opened the door for Team 8 herself. She said with a smile, "Go in, good luck on the exam, and I look forward to hearing good news from you." "We won't let you down, Mr. Hong." Izayoi raised the corner of his mouth slightly and walked in with Hinata and Aburame Shino full of confidence. Class 7, having come to their senses, continued to follow closely behind. Post views, 6th chapter 55, Sister-in-law's growth, first test, CH 55, outdoor and indoor are 2 completely different atmospheres. Although there were few people outside, Class 7 and Class 8 felt very cozy, like a warm corridor in winter. There were obviously many people in the room, and it was noisy. But when Uzumaki Naruto and Haruno Sakura stepped into the testing room, they felt a biting chill. As if noticing them, the examination room suddenly became much quieter, and countless gazes were cast at them like needle points. Uzumaki Naruto and Haruno Sakura, who did not encounter Zabuza Momochi and Haku in the Wave Country chapter, and the Demon Brothers were defeated by Uchiha Sasuke, tensed up and their eyes revealed a hint of fear involuntarily. The tail end, "Are you shaking?" At this time, Uchiha Sasuke's voice came into his ears. Looking at Uchiha Sasuke, who was laughing at him, Uzumaki Naruto didn't know why the fear in his heart instantly disappeared, and he shouted loudly, "I'm not afraid of them. I'm just trembling with excitement." Izayoi ignored Team 7 and said to Hinata and Aburame Shino, "Go find your seats first." Hinata and Aburame Shino nodded, then looked for their seat numbers and walked over. Izayoi and Hinata's seats were in the 3rd row in the middle, and they happened to be sitting at the same table. Yes, Izayoi's seat is the seat of Uzumaki Naruto in the original novel. The seat number that Uzumaki Naruto got was still next to Hinata, and then Izayoi exchanged seats with him. Uzumaki Naruto naturally would not refuse such a small request. Interestingly, the seat number that Izayoi received was the same as that of Uchiha Sasuke. Now the two of them have exchanged seat numbers, and Uchiha Sasuke and Uzumaki Naruto have become desk mates. I don't know whether Uchiha Sasuke will help Uzumaki Naruto cheat. Will the morale-boosting scene in the original work still appear? But the butterfly effect has already appeared. The 9 great warriors did not gather at the podium. Kabuto Yakushi did not show up to win favor. And there was no little farce directed and performed by Kabuto Yakushi and Sound Ninja. Before the exam started, Izayoi and Hinata started biting each other's ears, just like they used to do in school. Of course, considering that there were strangers around, the two chatted about normal topics. Hanabi has already started learning the 8 trigrams, 32 palms. So powerful? Izayoi asked in surprise. Yeah. Hinata nodded, a proud smile on her face. Father and the elders also said that Hanabi's talent for soft fist is higher than mine. When I was her age, I was still practicing acupressure, and my chakra was not as strong as hers. In response, Izayoi smiled but said nothing. Although Hanabi's talent is very high, there is still a big gap compared to Hinata. If Izayoi had obtained the Uzumaki bloodline, purple, when Hinata was 5, and awakened her physical healing abilities, allowing Hinata to absorb chakra for 2 years, she would have definitely been more amazing than Hanabi when she was 7. The chakra is huge, but it is a hidden talent. However, Hanabi's growth still surprised Izayoi. It seems that the Otsutsuki bloodline, red, plus physical healing has turned me into a great tonic. If Hanabi starts learning the 8 trigrams and 32 palms at the age of 7 and continues to absorb it until Boruto, to what extent will she be able to change her fate? Evolve into the Samsara Eye? It feels unlikely, because Izayoi gradually realized a very crucial thing. Hinata absorbed his chakra, and her Byakugan had already exceeded the upper limit of the Hyuga clan, so it shouldn't be long before she's upgraded. With this level of improvement, if it were placed on a blue entry, this entry would have been upgraded to a purple entry long ago. However, Hinata's Otsutsuki bloodline is still just a blue entry. This means that Izayoi's chakra cannot upgrade Hinata's Otsutsuki bloodline. The Rinnegan is based mainly on the Otsutsuki bloodline, red. Even if the purity of the Byakugan is only at the gold level, it can still evolve into the Rinnegan. If Hinata and Hanabi simply improve their Byakugan, then the possibility of them awakening the Rinnegan in the future is very small. But what will happen if their blood limit, Byakugan, is upgraded to a red item? Like Kagaya Otsutsuki, can she release coercion and illusions? Or can they awaken special abilities like the pure-blooded Otsutsuki clan? Izayoi didn't know, but he was very much looking forward to the future of the two girls. While Izayoi and Hinata were chatting, the candidates had already arrived one after another. Bang, bang, bang after an unknown amount of time. The overlapping sounds of several balloons being punctured interrupted the whispering between Izayoi and Hinata. Over on the podium, several puffs of white smoke appeared out of thin air. When the smoke cleared, the chief examiner of the first exam, Ibiki Marino, appeared with several invigilators. Quiet. Marino Ibiki just shouted softly, and the entire examination room became so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Many of the genin who had looked ferocious before and were specifically trying to scare the candidates who had just entered the room held their breath and dared not even to breathe. There's no way. It's just that Marino Ibiki's appearance and his eyes are too scary. His face was covered with scars, and his eyes were like a prison warden, as if the people in front of him were not examinees, but prisoners who could be tortured at any time. Marino Ibiki, who has an amazing aura, doesn't need to use anyone to establish his authority. After briefly explaining the exam rules and announcing the 10th question at the end of the exam, he announced the official start of the first exam. Sasuke, help seeing the first exam was the nightmare of 6 years in ninja school. Uzumaki Naruto's whole body turned white. He who never accepted the defeat of Uchiha Sasuke also sent out a distress signal for the first time. Hearing this, Uchiha Sasuke couldn't help but curl up the corners of his mouth with satisfaction. However, when the test papers were handed out, his expression froze. Well, what is this? Is this kind of test question the knowledge taught in the 6 years of ninja school? Could it be that his status as an excellent student in academic subjects was actually fake? Almost subconsciously, Uchiha Sasuke raised his eyes and looked towards Izayoi and Hinata. I saw that the two of them had already started writing. At this moment, Uchiha Sasuke seemed to see a huge gap slowly appearing between him and the two of them. They are totally not on the same level. But fortunately, his seat was in the back row, so the corners of Uchiha Sasuke's mouth turned up again, and his black eyes had turned into scarlet Tamagatama Sharingan. His eyes were fixed on Izayoi without even glancing at the paper, but the pen in his hand was writing characters one by one on the blank paper. If you look closely, you will find that the handwriting of these characters is completely different from the names on the test paper. While Uchiha Sasuke was copying Izayoi's moves, other candidates who didn't know how to answer the questions also began to show their skills. Whether it was using secret techniques, bloodline limits, ninja tools, or even ugly sneak peeks, all kinds of cheating methods were seen by Marino Ibiki and several invigilators. They didn't speak. However, when the invigilator sees cheating that is too serious to watch, he or she will write a -2 next to that person's seat number. The full score of the test is 10. If you're caught cheating, 2 points will be deducted instead of being eliminated on the spot. Until someone is deducted 10 points, the entire team, including his teammates, will be eliminated. Number 35 is eliminated, and this guy's 2 teammates are also gone. In less than 5 minutes, the first eliminated person appeared. The first person to be eliminated naturally feels dissatisfied. But after being reprimanded by the invigilator and seeing the gap between themselves and the Chunins, the psychological pressure on those cheaters suddenly doubled. After all, they didn't know whether their cheating would be discovered by the Chunins who were more senior than them. Once he is eliminated, his teammates will be eliminated as well. How will he explain to his teammates then? The only exceptions are those who possess secret techniques and bloodline limits. Soon, 40 minutes of the exam time had passed. The examination room that was previously packed now has a large number of empty seats. I don't know how many teams have been eliminated. Izayoi and Hinata had already finished answering all the questions and were chatting under the table using the secret hand signals taught by the ninja school. The invigilators who noticed them had their mouths twitching slightly. Another 5 minutes passed, and Marino Ibiki checked the time on his pocket watch and shouted, "Everyone put down your pens." Next, I will announce the 10th question. Post views. 5 Chapter 56 Ino's Request, CH 56. Just like in the original work, before announcing the 10th question, Ibiki Marino gave a multiple-choice question of challenge or give up. If you choose to challenge the 10th question, no matter whether you answer the previous 9 questions correctly or not, if you answer the 10th question incorrectly, you will be eliminated immediately and will never be able to take part in the Chunin exam for the rest of your life. If you choose to give up, you will also be eliminated, but you could take part in the next Chunin exam. After hearing this rule, the candidates who had managed to fill in the test papers with cheating could not accept it. But under the momentum of Marino Ibiki, they soon quieted down and began to struggle. I give up. Soon, some candidates raised their hands with their eyes closed and teeth gritted. I give up too. I can just come back next time. I don't want to gamble my future. With someone taking the lead, candidates soon raised their hands and made an excuse for themselves. Because one person was eliminated, the whole team suffered. Every time a candidate gives up, 3 people will leave. After a while, the examination room, which already had a large number of empty seats, suddenly became empty by 1/3. Izayoi supported her face with one hand and held Hinata's hand with the other hand under the table. She was very curious about Uzumaki Naruto's expression and didn't know what that guy was feeling. If Izayoi turned her head or opened her samsara eye, she would find Uzumaki Naruto with his arms folded, looking relaxed and confident. If you look carefully, you will find that his test paper is already filled with answers. Unlike the blank paper in the original work, Naruto, who became a desk mate with Uchiha Sasuke, did not have to do anything at all. He just needed to hold the pen, and the rest was left to Uchiha Sasuke. Relying on the Uchiha clan's shuriken jutsu skills, Uchiha Sasuke used steel wire to transform himself into a puppeteer and controlled Uzumaki Naruto to answer questions. Uzumaki Naruto was naturally not panicked at all. Without Uzumaki Naruto's morale boost, the number of people eliminated in the first exam was naturally higher than in the original work. But that's all. Many candidates from outside the school found loopholes. Just because they can't take the Chunin exam doesn't mean they can't become a Chunin. After all, they are not Konoha's ninjas. As long as they are good enough, the village's top leaders will definitely promote them. If I choose to give up now, although I can still go to the Great Ninja Village to take part in the Chunin exam next time, it will disappoint the village leaders. Therefore, many candidates were able to withstand this wave of psychological pressure from Ibiki Marino. Seeing that the time was about to run out, and seeing that no one had chosen to give up and would not choose to give up, Marino Ibiki, who had been tense, suddenly smiled and said, "Congratulations, you all passed the first test." Voices of surprise and astonishment suddenly rang out. The candidates who had been prepared to challenge the 10th question were all dumbfounded. Then many candidates who couldn't accept it asked, "What do you mean by this?" In response, Marino Ibiki began to talk about the ordeal of the first exam. It turns out that the first 9 questions only test the ninja's knowledge and ability to gather intelligence, while the 10th question is about the cohesion of the entire team. Even so, many candidates still felt dazed. Bang! Before they could come to their senses, the sound of a broken window attracted their attention. Mitarashi Anko made a stunning appearance in a flamboyant manner that was very familiar to Uzumaki Naruto, as if she was looking in a mirror. When many candidates saw this scene, they all had their minds filled with black lines. However, the subsequent conversation between Mitarashi Anko and Marino Ibiki made all the candidates change their expressions slightly. "Ibiki, what happened to you? Why are there so many people left? This year's Genin is much better. TSK, it doesn't matter. Anyway, I will reduce their number by at least half in the next exam." At the end of her speech, Mitarashi Anko scanned the entire audience like a hunter. Unlike her exaggerated appearance, her evil smile similar to Orochimaru's and her aura of a special jonin made many candidates feel frightened, and they never dared to underestimate this woman again. Just like Marino Ibiki, anyone who can become the chief examiner is indeed no ordinary person. Everyone, gather outside Konoha's 44th training ground on time, before 3 p.m. tomorrow. Anyone late will be deemed to have forfeited. After leaving these words, Mitarashi Anko left the examination room, announcing the end of the first exam. "Hey, long time no see." Class 8 and Class 7 still left the examination room together. However, before entering the corridor, Izayoi and the others heard a familiar voice in the hallway. When I turned around, I saw Narashikamaru holding the back of his head with his hands, walking towards me with the Kimichi Chuji and Yamanaka Ino. "Sasuke, long time no see." Yamanaka Ino enthusiastically wanted to pounce on Uchiha Sasuke, but the latter dodged her by moving sideways. "Inobo, what do you want to do to Sasuke?" Haruno Sakura said angrily. "Broad forehead, what's it to you? Do you want to fight?" Yamanaka Ino retorted unyieldingly. Then, the two former best friends started fighting, just like Uchiha Sasuke and Uzumaki Naruto before, directly bumping foreheads together and ready to pinch each other at any time. "Long time no see, Shikamaru, Choji." Izayoi and the others ignored the two women and greeted Nara Shikamaru and Akimichi Chuji. Izayoi teased, "I thought someone is trouble-hating as you would not take part in the Chunin exams. I really don't want to participate, but Asuma-sensei and my father forced me to participate." Nara Shikamaru spread his hands and said, "And Ino also wants to participate in the Chunin exam. I'm sure you all saw something wrong with the application." Izayoi nodded, and then the new version of the 9 strong men walked out of the teaching building together. On the way, Yamanaka Ino who had already finished bickering with Haruno Sakura, had come up to Hinata's side without her noticing. She looked at Hinata's white kimono and said with a smile, "Hinata, your new outfit is very beautiful. It suits your temperament very well." "Thank you." Hinata smiled softly. That Yamanaka Ino pulled Hinata's sleeves a little embarrassedly, glanced at the boys, then leaned close to Hinata's ear and whispered, "Hinata, how did you do it?" Haruno Sakura's ears moved slightly, and she moved closer to the two women unnoticeably. "What?" Hinata was a little confused. "That's it, how did you do that?" Yamanaka Ino first glanced at Hinata's amazing size, which could not be covered by her loose kimono, and then looked at her own assets, which were not very good, but also not very attractive, and asked again, "Hinata, what do you usually eat?" Hinata's face instantly turned red. She didn't know what she was thinking of. She slowly lowered her head and whispered, "I don't know. I just eat more than others." "Just eat more?" Yamanaka Ino believed it. But when she looked at Akimichi Choji, who was eating potato chips not far away and quietly watching Nara Shikamaru and Izayoi chatting with the others, just like Aburame Shino, she immediately said with frustration, "It seems that this method is useless to me." Although the Yamanaka clan are the pigs in Ino, Deer, and Cho, Yamanaka Ino doesn't want to really become a pig. Not only that, she also hates being called a wild boar. Post views, 2 Chapter 57, Small Group Gathering, just in case CH 57. It's been a while since we last met. Do you want to get together and have a barbecue? It's my treat. After leaving the school, Izayoi extended an invitation to Class 7 and Class 10. Upon hearing this, Akimichi Choji and Uzumaki Naruto's eyes suddenly lit up. "Sure, but let's go Dutch." Nara Shikamaru nodded, but made a request. After all, he was well aware of how amazing Akimichi Choji's appetite was. Even an elite jonin like Asuma Sensei has been forced to pay on credit to his boss by being cheated by Akimichi Choji more than once. Nara Shikamaru also knows a little about Izayoi's family situation. Civilian orphans, apart from their parents' inheritance, rely entirely on the village's pension. Even though he had been a genin for several months, the money he earned might not be enough to buy Akimichi Choji a barbecue meal. "It's okay, just eat as much as you want. I still have quite a bit of savings." Izayoi, who has become a super rich man in the ninja world, smiles a smile that makes Uzumaki Naruto and Akimichi Choji admire him very much. Seeing this, Nara Shikamaru said nothing more and planned to invite him back later. At this time, Uchiha Sasuke said in a way that spoiled the mood, "I want to go back and practice." "You can practice at any time, just relax yourself today." Izayoi reached out and patted Uchiha Sasuke's shoulder, but his eyes were full of threats. All right. Knowing what kind of beating Uchiha Sasuke would get next time if he rejected Izayoi, he folded his arms proudly, looking as if he was doing it reluctantly. Sakura Haruno and Ino Yamanaka's eyes lit up, and they began to imagine themselves sitting next to Uchiha Sasuke while eating. Then, as if they had guessed what the other was thinking, they stared at each other, their eyes converging into a line, with flames bursting out. Arriving at the largest barbecue restaurant in Konoha, the 9 strong men put 3 tables together and started their first barbecue party. Uzumaki Naruto, who has never eaten anything good, competes with Akimichi Choji to see who can eat more barbecue. Yamanaka Ino and Haruno Sakura sat next to Uchiha Sasuke, constantly showing their courtesy, but this made Uchiha Sasuke look disgusted. Nara Shikamaru and Aburame Shino sat together, drinking juice while chatting with Izayoi, talking about the candidates they observed during the exam. As Izayoi answered the question, he skillfully helped Hinata grill the meat and put it on Hinata's plate. Hinata was eating silently and looked very ladylike, but if you look closely, you will find that her speed is no less than that of Uzumaki Naruto and Akimichi Choji, who were wolfing down their food. His appetite is even more amazing than Uzumaki Naruto and is not inferior to Akimichi Choji. Gradually, Nara Shikamaru also noticed this, and his eyes were full of surprise when he looked at Hinata. There is actually someone whose appetite is just as good as Shikamaru's? This rich lady is so powerful. The party was coming to an end. Izayoi took out a camera from somewhere and asked his shadow clone to take a photo of them. If Sarutobi Hiruzen saw this scene, he would definitely sigh. This is the future of Konoha. This meal cost more than 100,000 taels over 16 nights. In the past, Izayoi would have bled heavily. After all, after 6 years, he had only saved over 300,000 yuan. But now, this amount of money is nothing. This meal also brought the classmates who had studied together for 6 years closer together. They were not in the same circle before, but now, they have formed a small group. Only Izayoi knows how valuable this group is. There are 2 saviors and Hokages, and the rest are either heirs to wealthy families, future leaders of Konoha Hospital and the Intelligence Department, or suppliers of Raigen, etc. In the past, Izayoi only wanted to brush up on the entries and had no time to make friends. Now that his ninja qualifications have reached the 6 paths, and considering that he will be living in Konoha in the future, Izayoi doesn't mind expanding his network of contacts. The next day, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, ring, ring, ring. The sound of the alarm clock woke Hinata, who was taking a nap. Hinata rubbed her eyes, first glanced at Izayoi, who was still sleeping next to her, then quietly got out of bed, tied her hair into a bun, and went to the bathroom to wash up. Izayoi-kun, it's time to get up. After she finished washing herself, Hinata squeezed toothpaste for Izayoi before waking him up. What time is it? Izayoi said in a daze. It's already 2 o'clock in the afternoon. There's still an hour left. Let me sleep a little longer. Demeda, hurry up and get up. Hinata pulled back the covers and gently pushed Izayoi's body to prevent him from continuing to sleep. Then kiss me, or I won't get up. Izayoi began to put forward conditions. Well, Hinata pouted and her face flushed slightly, but she still leaned over and kissed Izayoi on the forehead. It's too light, I can't feel it. Mue, I want a kiss on the cheek. Mue, and this side. Izayoi pointed to the other side of his face. He had opened his eyes without knowing when, with a smirk on his face. Izayoi-kun, do you know who you look like now? Just like Hanabi. Hinata rolled her eyes at Izayoi, but still moved closer to his other cheek with a blushing face and pecked him lightly. Then he pulled Izayoi up. Hanabi was almost raised by us. It's no wonder that she has a similar personality to me. Izayoi smiled and rubbed Hinata's little face and also kissed her blushing little face. Go brush your teeth, your mouth stinks. Hinata's face turned even redder, and then she pushed Izayoi into the bathroom with pretended disgust. While brushing her teeth, Izayoi said vaguely, Hinata, go open the drawer of the desk and help me get the red box out. Good. Hinata, who was about to go out to pour milk for Izayoi, immediately nodded. Soon, Hinata came in with a box. She didn't put it down and go out, but stood aside, waiting for Izayoi to finish washing up. Very quickly, Izayoi finished rinsing his mouth and washing his face. After taking the handkerchief handed to her by Hinata and drying her face, Izayoi opened the box, which contained 2 lenses. Is this glasses? Hinata asked in surprise. No, these are cosmetic lenses. Izayoi opened her samsara eye and put on her cosmetic contact lenses. The pupil, which was originally sky blue with white flowing patterns around it, suddenly returned to its original deep blue color. This thing was what Izayoi bought in the city where the villa was located before returning to Konoha. Seeing that Izayoi had hidden her samsara eye, the clever Hinata seemed to realize something and asked solemnly, Izayoi-kun, is this Chunin exam dangerous? Hinata, who had witnessed the power of repulsion and gravity, did not think that there was anyone among the genin who could be a match for Izayoi. But now, Izayoi put on the beauty contact lenses, obviously prepared to use repulsion and attraction, but did not want others to discover his eye technique. What kind of enemy deserves such treatment? Hinata felt a little heavy. It's just in case. If everything goes well, it will be easy. If not, there might be a tough battle. Izayoi looked at himself in the mirror and gave a meaningful smile. Post views. 2 Chapter 58. She has the same ability as me. CH 58, 2:40 p.m. Izayoi and Hinata first went to the old place to meet up with Aburame Shino and then came to the outside of Konoha's 44th training ground. Konoha's 44th training ground, also known as the Death Forest, is one of the few training grounds in Konoha that is not open unless under special circumstances. It is also one of Konoha's forbidden areas. The invigilators had already set up a shed and tent outside, and there was a sign for the assembly point. Although there were still 20 minutes before the exam started, Class 8 were not the first candidates to arrive. A large number of candidates were already standing in the open space. There are at least a dozen groups of 3. In the next 10 minutes, more and more candidates arrived, and the open space became crowded. Hey, Izayoi, you guys came so early. Long time no see, Izayoi and Hinata. Long time no see, Minako. Since Class 8 was standing on the periphery, Class 7 and Class 10, who had just arrived, saw them at a glance. In addition, another small team also came over, which was the 6th team where Inuzuka Kibo was. Have you heard? Among the 10 teams in our class, it seems that only the 12 of us were recognized by the guiding Jonin, and the others were eliminated. Minako said. Hinata was slightly surprised and asked, have all the other students returned to school to retake the course? 2 teams have returned to school to retake classes, and the others have been specially recruited by other departments. There are also a few students who seem to have suffered some kind of blow and chose to drop out. Minako sighed. Becoming a formal ninja doesn't seem to be a good thing. We went on a C-rank mission last month and were almost killed by the enemy's poisonous smoke. Fortunately, Akamaru saved me. Come on, you will definitely become stronger. Hinata could only encourage. After all, Class 8 is a perception class, and her Byakugan has been upgraded to the point where she can see things within a radius of more than 20 kilometers. She may never experience this feeling in her lifetime. I heard that the Death Forest is a forbidden area of Konoha. This exam is likely to be a wild survival test. There may be competitions between candidates. Uchiha Sasuke challenged, as always. If so, you better be careful and don't let me eliminate you. Izayoi frowned slightly, put his fingers to his nose, leaned back slightly, and said, have you been drinking? No, I'm only 12 years old. Uchiha Sasuke shook his head. Seeing Izayoi's disgusted look, he almost couldn't help but sniff his clothes to see if there was really a smell of alcohol. But Izayoi's next words made his face turn red instantly. Oh, I thought you were still hung over and talking in your sleep. Puff ha ha ha. Inuzuka Kiba and Uzumaki Naruto couldn't help but burst into laughter. Well, just wait and see. Uchiha Sasuke folded his arms and looked Sundara again. No one, including Uchiha Sasuke, noticed that the current Uchiha Sasuke had changed a lot compared to the 5 years after he entered the ninja school. It's like going back to 1st grade. Looking at the little cockroaches who were talking and laughing, a large number of candidates immediately turned their eyes over. After seeing clearly the forehead protectors they were wearing and their appearance, some candidates from small ninja villages were filled with fear in their eyes. After all, among these 12 people, 8 of them are not easy to deal with. Among them, there is a chief student who has the power to overpower the future successors of the major ninja clans. There are also heirs to the 3 major sensory ninja clans, the Hyuga, Aburame, and Inuzuka clans, as well as the orphans of the Uchiha clan and the new generation of Inoshikacho. Either they are civilian geniuses, or they are the owners of bloodline limits and secret techniques. When they grow up, they might be the ones calling the shots in Konoha. Judging from their appearance, they seem to have a very good relationship. When I meet them in the 2nd exam, I will have to run away. A small number of candidates thought so in their hearts. There were also many candidates who had their eyes on Izayoi and the others, thinking that it would be a good idea to kill the heirs of the ninja clan in Konoha's home turf. Among them was a gaze full of greed, staring at the arrogant Uchiha Sasuke, and almost couldn't help sticking out his long tongue. There was also a red-haired girl who was also looking at Hinata and the other girls. Looking at Hinata, who was dressed gorgeously and had a noble temperament, as well as Haruno Sakura and Yamanaka Ino, who looked spoiled, Karen's eyes were full of envy. Is this the female genin from the Great Ninja Village? At this moment, Karen seemed to have sensed something and couldn't help but look in the direction she felt. I saw a young man in a white robe standing next to the girl in kimono, looking at her with a smile on his face. Looking at that handsome face and gentle smile, Karen, who was seeing such a handsome boy for the first time, her cheeks suddenly turned as red as her hair. She turned her head away evasively, but soon she couldn't help but secretly look at the boy. Izayoi-kun, are you looking at that female Kusanagi? Hinata asked when she saw the adulterer. Izayoi nodded, readily admitted it, and whispered, "She has the same ability as me." Hearing this, Hinata's expression changed slightly, and she stared into Izayoi's eyes without saying anything. "Not this one." Izayoi smiled, "The one you and Hanabi always use." Hinata was slightly stunned, and then she looked at Karen, who was peeking at Izayoi again. When he saw the girl's eyes meet hers, he immediately withdrew his gaze like a frightened rabbit and never dared to peek again, secretly guessing in his heart. Could she be a member of Izayoi-kun's clan? The Kusagakure village seems to be right next to the Land of Fire. Could it be that Izayoi-kun's ancestors came from that land? All candidates, please line up to sign the death consent form. The second exam will begin soon. The time soon came to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Since the little cockroaches were all standing on the periphery of the team, there was no episode in the original novel where Uzumaki Naruto provoked Mitarashi Anko and then was taught a lesson by the latter, nor was there the episode of the master and apprentice reuniting. All candidates stood in several rows and lined up to sign the death consent form. Then the team leader entered the tent next to the shed, received one of the scrolls of heaven and earth, and was led by the invigilator to the exclusive entrance. On the way, the invigilator also told them the rules of the second exam. Just as Uchiha Sasuke said, the second exam is wilderness survival, and the exam time is a total of 120 hours, or 5 days. Within 5 days, they must collect all the scrolls of heaven and earth and reach the central tower of the Death Forest. If you exceed the time limit or fail to collect all the scrolls of heaven and earth, you will not be able to enter the central tower and will be eliminated directly. If you open the scroll out of curiosity, you will be eliminated on the spot. After explaining the rules, the invigilator stood in front of the iron gate of the team's exclusive entrance, waiting for the broadcast sound. Wide eyes open, Hinata made a no seal with her hands, and veins bulged on both sides of her temples. After a few seconds, she spoke up. Our entrance is 8. The teams at entrances 7 and 9 all have scrolls of earth. It's okay. There are 24 teams in this exam, and there are 12 heavenly scrolls in total. Even if we don't take the initiative to attack, there will be prey that will come to us on their own initiative. Izayoi glanced at the scroll in his hand and saw the word Earth written on it. Hinata said solemnly, "There is someone in the team at entrance 7 whose chakra is very strong." "Oh, who is he?" Izayoi, who had not opened the samsara eye, said with interest. "I don't know, but he was wearing a sand ninja forehead protector and carrying a gourd on his back." Hinata described the other party's characteristics. "Sasuke seemed to have mentioned this person yesterday." Aburame Shino said calmly, "Anyone who can be remembered by Sasuke should not be a simple person." "Yeah, he's a powerful guy." Izayoi smiled and nodded. Post views, 2 Chapter 59. 5 entries are not the limit of genius, CH 59. The second exam of the Chunin selection officially begins. As the exam time approached, Mitarashi Anko's voice was immediately transmitted through the radio to the ears of all invigilators and candidates. The invigilators who had been waiting at the door for a long time immediately took out the key, opened the iron door, and said to the examinees, "Go in." In an instant, the candidates who passed the first exam either flew in as afterimages, or rushed in with their fists clenched behind their backs like ninjas, or walked in at a leisurely pace. Class 8 is the last one. Izayoi-kun, should we take the initiative? Hinata asked. "No hurry, let's go find someone first." Izayoi opened his samsara eye, and his vision turned into a god's perspective, first covering the entire Death Forest, and then switching to each team like a surveillance camera. Soon, the locations of Karen and her 2 teammates were exposed to Izayoi. Follow me. Izayoi flew out in an instant. Hinata and Aburame Shino followed closely behind. Mr. Izayoi, are you going to look for that female Kusanagi? Hinata vaguely guessed what Izayoi was going to do. Well, such talents should not be wasted. Izayoi nodded. For this exam, Izayoi was fully prepared and even wore colored contact lenses. He wants to change the fate of two people, one of whom is Karen. The trip to the black market made Izayoi feel the inconvenience of being a lone wolf. If it weren't for the cleverness of sparing the lives of Momochi Zabuza and Haku, Izayoi would not have a human puppet until now. Haku is a good tool, but unfortunately he is only loyal to Momochi Zabuza. Izayoi does not trust Momochi Zabuza, so he will not recruit such a traitor. But from then on, Izayoi began to think about recruiting subordinates. Karen is one of his targets. Even though his family was destroyed, his parents died early, and his inheritance was lost, he was still able to awaken all of the unique abilities of the Uzumaki clan at the age of 16. Karen's talent is among the best even in the 1,000-year history of the Uzumaki clan. Even though she hasn't changed her fate yet, Karen's entry is more dazzling than many other small strongholds. Whirlpool Bloodline, purple. Chakra Control, purple. Medical Genius, blue. Jounin Qualification, blue. Otsutsuki Bloodline, blue. Just like there are differences between the red entries. Although the blood of Karen and Uzumaki Naruto are both purple, the purity of the red hair is definitely superior to that of the golden hair, even though the golden hair has the ancestor's chakra in his body. And Izayoi was very sure that 5 entries were not Karen's limit. When he first learned medical ninjutsu, he unlocked the entry for Medical Genius, blue. The Uzumaki clan has a natural talent for sealing techniques. As long as Karen starts learning sealing techniques, she will definitely automatically unlock the talent of Sealing Genius, blue, like Izayoi. By then, Karen will be a genius with 6 attributes. How could Izayoi give such a talent to Orochimaru? Hinata and Aburame Shino certainly didn't know what Izayoi was thinking. However, Aburame Shino heard something and couldn't help but adjust her sunglasses and reminded, Izayoi, are you planning to recruit ninjas from other ninja villages? This is illegal. Then Shino, will you go and complain? Izayoi asked with a smile. Aburame Shino thought for a moment and said, I won't if you don't leave her in Konoha. After spending some time together, Aburame Shino already considered Izayoi and Hinata as companions. Izayoi would not ignore himself like Uzumaki Naruto and the others did, which made Aburame Shino feel good about him. In his heart, Izayoi and Hinata are both his friends. He would never betray his friends. The premise is that Izayoi does not do anything to let down the village. Imprisoning ninjas from other countries in Konoha is already a very serious diplomatic incident. As the heir of the Aburame clan, Aburame Shino cannot turn a blind eye. Don't worry, I'll take care of it. Izayoi smiled and nodded. Seeing that Izayoi agreed so readily, Aburame Shino also expressed her opinion. If you need any help, just let me know. Just you and Hinata help me take out those 2 Kusanagi ninjas. Team 8, which was teleporting at full speed, was rapidly closing the distance with Karen's team. At this time, Karen was being directed by her teammates to set up traps. Hurry up. If you are discovered, we will leave you here. Ah yes, you are such a useless thing. If your healing ability wasn't of some use, I really wouldn't want to bring a burden like you here. Sorry. Karen, who was threatened and scolded by her teammates, did not dare to express any dissatisfaction. Instead, she set up traps while apologizing in a trembling voice, being extremely humble, such as the position of the outsider. Although Karen grew up in the Kusagakure village, her mother was not from the village. Even if she could become a ninja, she would be an outsider who would not be trusted by the village. Obviously, Karen and her mother both have extremely powerful physical healing abilities. However, the Kusagakure village only used medical kits for the mother and daughter. Anyone who was injured could come and absorb their chakra to heal their injuries, so much so that Karen's mother, who had inherited the powerful vitality of the Uzumaki clan, died early. Karen also became a malnourished and nearsighted girl. What's even more ridiculous is that the Kusagakure village is very good at studying other countries' ninjutsu, but they don't know what red hair and physical healing mean. 8 trigrams, empty palm. Just as Karen was setting the trap, she suddenly heard a girl's cry in her ears. At the same time, there was a buzzing sound coming from far away. Before Karen could look up, a loud bang came from the direction of her companions. Turning around, I saw a companion standing under a big tree, stuck to the trunk like a painting, with cracks all over his body and blood spitting out of his mouth. Before the other companion could react, he was overwhelmed by countless insects falling from the sky. After a scream, he fell to the ground and was silent. Karen was so frightened by this scene that she collapsed on the ground. Her already pale face became even paler. Just then, a gentle laugh came to her ears. "Hey, we meet again." Following the direction of the voice, she saw 2 men and 1 woman standing in front of her. Looking at Izayoi, who was standing in the middle, Karen's eyes widened behind her glasses. "It's you. Let me see your arm." Hinata crouched down, grabbed Karen's arm, and pulled up her sleeves. The next second, Hinata's eyes suddenly became sharp. Karen's forearm was covered with teeth marks of different shapes. Of course, this is not why Hinata is angry. She and Hanabi would absorb Izayoi's chakra every day, and over the past 2 years, not a single tooth mark was left, because the chakra they absorbed could not even be recovered as fast as Izayoi's. But Karen only had 2 teammates, and the teeth marks on her arm were from at least several people, and it was just 1 arm. This means that her situation is the opposite of Izayoi's, and her recovery speed is not as fast as the speed at which her chakra is being sucked away. 8 trigrams, empty palm. Hinata stood up and blasted out another shock wave through the air, killing the dying Kusanagi on the spot. From beginning to end, Hinata never expressed any concern for Karen. But what she did made Karen's eyes mist up uncontrollably and tears welled up. Many years after her mother's death, she finally felt cared for again. And this feeling was given to her by her enemy. Post views, 3 chapters 60 Aburame Shino speculation. The first subordinate, CH60. While Hinata was finishing off the enemy, Izayoi also crouched down, but did not open his mouth to show concern for Karen. Instead, he rolled up his sleeves, stretched out his forearm in front of Karen, and said with a smile, "Take a bite, and the teeth marks on your hand will disappear." Hearing this, Karen, whose tears had already fallen from her eyes, suddenly widened her eyes again. At the same time, she looked at Izayoi with a look of disbelief and a hint of joy, and said in a trembling voice, "Could it be that you also saw him?" Izayoi nodded and told a white lie. "Although our hair colors are different, our ancestors should be from the same clan. So, I could tell you were special at first glance." That's great." Karen suddenly bit her lower lip, lowered her head, and murmured to herself with sobs. Then her shoulders began to tremble slightly. The tears, like rain, wet the lenses and dripped onto the ground. She's finally no longer an orphan. She and her tribe. At this moment, Karen wanted to burst into tears, but she was afraid that she would be hated by her tribe members, so she could only sob quietly. Izayoi didn't say anything, but smiled as he watched Karen venting her emotions. Hinata stood silently by. Not wanting to disturb the tribe's reunion, Aburame Shino went to the 2 bodies to search for their scrolls. At the same time, Aburame Shino was also guessing in her heart. Red hair, special healing abilities, tribe members, why do these keywords seem familiar? As if I have heard my father say them. Suddenly, Aburame Shino paused slightly as if she had thought of something. Then, he continued to walk towards the 2 bodies, adjusting his sunglasses with his hand. He seemed to know why Izayoi possessed such a huge amount of chakra. It turns out that Izayoi has the blood of the Uzumaki clan. According to history books, the Senju clan and the Uzumaki clan are distant blood relatives. Before the establishment of Konoha, the Uzumaki clan still lived in the Ninja continent, also in the Land of Fire. After Konoha was established, the Uzumaki clan did not join Konoha, but left the Ninja continent and established the Yuzushiobikura village on an island. Konoha and the hidden Yuzushio village are also eternal allies. Apparently, Izayoi's ancestors were either members of the Uzumaki clan or they married into the Uzumaki clan during the Warring States period before Konoha was founded. The bloodline was diluted from generation to generation. The family name and characteristics disappeared, and then it awakened in Izayoi's generation. The more Aburame Shino thought about it, the more she felt that this possibility was very high. To be precise, this is the only reasonable explanation. He seemed to understand why Izayoi wanted to recruit that girl. Kagura's mind's eye, Izayoi should have awakened this unique ability of the Uzumaki clan. Karen cried for several minutes before she gradually stopped, as if she realized something. Wipe it off. Hinata leaned over and handed over a handkerchief. Thank you. Karen took the handkerchief and thanked her softly. After she wiped her tears, Izayoi stretched out his arm again and said with a smile, "Take a bite, and your injury will heal." No need. I just need to rest for a while." Karen shook her head repeatedly. Facing this tribesman, she was even more humble than she was in front of her two companions. Just like the love that Uzumaki Naruto, Haku, and Kagaya Kimimaro had just received, for these orphans with miserable fates, the love of recognition, care, and acceptance is the light that tears through the darkness. Anyone who has seen the light can no longer endure the darkness. Just now I didn't dare to cry loudly, and now I don't dare to bite Izayoi either. Karen was afraid that her clan member Izayoi hated her. Izayoi could naturally see Karen's fear and couldn't help but smile. "Don't worry, bite me. My chakra is very strong. Hurry up and recover, or I'm afraid you will die suddenly at any time. Hurry up." At the end, Izayoi's tone became a little tougher. Yes, frightened, Karen quickly held Izayoi's arms with both hands, then looked at Izayoi cautiously, then looked at Hinata, who was smiling gently and not displeased beside Izayoi, and whispered, "Then I'm sorry." After saying that, Karen opened her mouth and gently bit Izayoi's forearm, not daring to use too much force. "Try harder, it's okay." Izayoi comforted with a smile. Seeing Izayoi's encouraging eyes, Karen blinked and slowly increased her strength. Immediately, Karen's eyes widened. She was originally extremely weak, and it was like a person about to die of thirst in the desert and suddenly drank a sip of ice-cold pure water, or like a hungry ghost eating delicacies from land and sea, or like returning to the fireplace from outside in winter. A warm current surged in her body and spread throughout her body. The teeth marks on the arm disappeared at a speed visible to the naked eye. The malnourished skin gradually became a little more rosy. The pale face regained color. Even myopic eyes can see things more clearly. Completely not on the same level. Karen looked shocked. She has also used physical healing to treat herself and absorbed her mother's chakra when she was a child. But neither her nor her mother's chakra is comparable to Izayoi's chakra. For example, if she wanted to save a seriously injured person now, she might need to use up all her chakra or even overdraw her vitality. And for Izayoi to save a seriously injured person, the chakra he consumed might only be a little more than what he had just used. What quality of chakra is this? Izayoi didn't know what Karen was thinking, otherwise she would have smiled. This is the value of the noble Otsutsuki plus physical healing. After replenishing Karen's blood, Izayoi stood up, stretched out his palm, and said with a smile, "My people, do you want to follow me in the future?" "But is it possible?" Karen asked excitedly. "Certainly." Izayoi smiled and nodded, saying, "But if this happens, you can't be a ninja anymore, and I'm not sure if I can let you join Konoha in the future." I do. Karen nodded excitedly. Whether or not she can continue to be a ninja doesn't matter to Karen at all. Her dream was not to become a ninja. She just wanted to have a family. When her mother was still alive, her home was in Kusagakure village. After her mother died, she was left without a home. Now that she has found her tribe, she has a new family. Very good. Then follow my shadow clone and leave. He will take you to a safe place. Izayoi formed a seal with one hand and created a shadow clone, then pulled Karen up, patted her shoulder, and said, I'll come find you after I finish the exam. Karen nodded again and again, not afraid at all that Izayoi would sell her out. If they spend a few more days together and their affection for each other rises to a certain level, I'm afraid that even if Izayoi sells Karen out, Karen will still help him count the money. The orphans in this world are so loyal. Post views, 7 chapter 61. The perfect second in command, don't underestimate me. CH 61. Izayoi, she's so pitiful. Looking at Karen, who was leaving with her shadow clone, Hinata said with a look of pity. She thought that when she was little, she was timid and humble enough in front of Izayoi. But compared to Karen, it's still a little bit worse. The look in that girl's eyes was heartbreaking. There are pitiful people like this everywhere. There are many people who are more pitiful than her. Izayoi touched Hinata's head and smiled. We can't help everyone. What we can do is to protect the important people around us. Hinata nodded vigorously. She is not a saint. It's just that Karen is a member of Izayoi's tribe, which triggers her female sensibility. Looking at the returning Aburame Shino, Izayoi asked, "What scrolls are they?" "It's the scroll of heaven," Aburame Shino replied. "That's just right. We are the scroll of earth." Izayoi took out the team's scroll and tossed it to Aburame Shino, saying, "I'll leave these 2 scrolls in your safekeeping, Shino." Hearing this, Aburame Shino seemed to have understood something and said, "We have gathered all the scrolls. Why don't we go directly to the central tower?" Izayoi turned his head and looked in a certain direction and said, "No hurry. There is still a problem that has not been solved." Hinata's expression changed slightly, and she remembered what Izayoi said in the bathroom. Combined with the information she gathered from her Byakugan, she couldn't help but ask, "Izayoi, are you going to deal with that sand ninja with a gourd on his back?" "No. It's someone stronger than him." Izayoi shook his head and told Hinata and Aburame Shino, "Wait for me outside the central tower. I will meet you after I solve that problem." "Yes." Hinata, knowing how powerful Izayoi was, nodded obediently. Seeing that Hinata didn't insist on going, Aburame Shino naturally nodded. "I understand." After separating from Hinata and Aburame Shino, Izayoi instantly flew in the direction of Team 7. That's right, the second person whose fate Izayoi was going to change was Uchiha Sasuke. With Izayoi's current configuration, the explosion rate of the item will be improved only if he defeats a Kaga-level warrior. Be it Momochi Zabuza, Kuriko Raiga, or Haku and Ranmaru, none of them have ever exploded their attributes, because Izayoi's strength is much stronger than theirs. If you defeat them, there's a very small chance that low-level and high-level entries will pop up. Izayoi tried to kill the enemy, and even created shadow clones with very little chakra, and killed people together with the shadow clones, but still no entry was released. This means that neither shadow clones nor killing people can increase the explosion rate. However, the number of powerful shadow-level masters in this era is very limited. In this case, there are only 2 ways for Izayoi to decompose the explosive entry into points. First, take a look at the talent entry system to see if there are other hidden mechanisms to increase the explosion rate. The second is to brush out super advanced entries and use them to decompose them into points. The highest entry level for a shadow-level warrior is purple, which only adds up to 4-digit points when broken down. Above the purple, there are gold and red entries, and even unknown levels. Decompose the gold and red entries, and they become random 5-digit and 6-digit points. If you are extremely lucky, you may randomly obtain more than 990,000 points by decomposing a red entry, and directly upgrade the red entry to an unknown new level at a 1-to-1 ratio. Before finding a new mechanism, Hinata, Uchiha Sasuke, and Uzumaki Naruto were Izayoi's targets. Among these 3 people, Izayoi values Uchiha Sasuke the most, because he has the best talent and makes the fastest progress. As long as his strength is improved, Izayoi's explosion rate will be higher. Therefore, Izayoi must change Uchiha Sasuke's fate and keep him in Konoha so that he can brush the entries at any time. Moreover, Uchiha Sasuke's loyalty is no less than that of Karen. In the original novel, After being defeated by Uzumaki Naruto, Uchiha Sasuke gave up all fame, fortune, and money, and devoted himself to working as a slave for Uzumaki Naruto. Because he didn't go home for several years, he almost killed his own daughter. In the world of One Piece, he is the perfect second-in-command like Roronoa Zoro. Naturally, Izayoi would not give such a talent to Orochimaru. There was a flash of white light in his eyes, and Shizaoi's speed increased a bit. At this time, Team 7 was confronting a grass ninja. "You got the Scroll of Heaven, so you must want the Scroll of Earth in my hand," Orochimaru, who used the defacement technique to disguise himself as a Kusanagi, shook the Scroll of Earth in his hand. Then, under the wide-eyed gaze of Team 7, he raised his head and stuffed the scroll into his mouth. Swallowed it. He actually ate the scroll. Uzumaki Naruto said in amazement. "What's the structure of this guy's body? Secret technique or bloodline limit?" Uchiha Sasuke analyzed calmly. As for Haruno Sakura, she was so scared that her legs were trembling, and she hid behind Uchiha Sasuke and Uzumaki Naruto. "Well then, let's begin the battle for the scroll." Orochimaru, who swallowed the Scroll of Earth, smiled playfully at Team 7. "I will do my best." Boom, an invisible wave of air roared out from Orochimaru's body. The members of Class 7 were stunned for a while. Then they all collapsed to the ground, their faces pale and their breathing rapid. Vomit. Uchiha Sasuke, the strongest member of the team, even vomited on the spot. Is it an illusion? No, that's murderous intent. Uchiha Sasuke looked at Orochimaru, his eyes filled with fear, just like when he faced Uchiha Itachi back then. Just with murderous intent, he made us see how he would die. Who is this guy? Why would such a person exist in the Chunin exam? Both were filled with murderous aura, but the sand ninja carrying the gourd was not on the same level as the grass ninja in front of him. No, it should be said it's not in the same dimension. But damn it, don't think you can scare me like this at this moment. Uzumaki Naruto's voice reached his ears. Uchiha Sasuke subconsciously turned his head to look, where he saw that Uzumaki Naruto not only did not vomit, but also stood up with gritted teeth and made hand seals with his hands. For some reason, Uchiha Sasuke's fear of Orochimaru disappeared in an instant. He is not even afraid of this last one. What is he afraid of? Thinking of this, Uchiha Sasuke's eyes suddenly became firm, and his black pupils turned into scarlet double Magatama Sharingan. "Don't underestimate me. I'm the man who wants to become Hokage at this time." Uzumaki Naruto also shouted to Orochimaru. Multiple shadow clone technique. Bang, 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 a series of sounds like balloons being punctured echoed throughout the forest. At the same time, each sound also brought up a cloud of white smoke. The smoke formed an area of white fog that was astonishingly large. When a gust of wind blew away the mist, 300 Uzumaki Narutos appeared in the forest. "Sasuke, Sakura, both of you get back." The shadow clone lifted Uchiha Sasuke and Haruno Sakura up, then passed them hand to hand and sent them to the back. The original body and its remaining clones formed seals with their hands and shouted arrogantly, "Look, I will blow you away in one breath." Seeing Uzumaki Naruto create so many shadow clones in one breath, and using this hand seal, Orochimaru, who was originally playing like a cat and a mouse, suddenly changed his expression and said, "With such chakra, could this brat be wind style? Great breakthrough." 300 shouts rang out simultaneously. Post views 2 Chapter 62. The inflated Naruto, step on the point, brother. CH 62. Woo woo woo. The howling wind, like the sound of a passing typhoon, spread across half of the Death Forest. Especially for the candidates who were closer to Class 7. They had just turned their heads to look in the direction where the wind came from when the strong wind swept in. The candidate who was flying in an instant was blown away by the strong wind and crashed into a towering tree. The candidates who were walking on the ground fell directly to the ground as if they were suddenly pushed hard by someone. Snap, boom, boom, amid the sound of the strong wind. There were faint sounds of objects breaking and collapsing. The picture zoomed in, and it was seen that the airflow in a certain area had become distorted, like a whirlpool in the sea. The towering trees in the vortex bent down one after another, and finally broke apart under the pressure. falling heavily to the ground and raising a cloud of dust. Fortunately, these strong winds were not sharp, and the death forest was a primeval forest. Every big tree was so tall that it took more than a dozen people to hug it. They were extremely tough. Otherwise, there will be more broken trees, and the entire area will even become a desolate place. Even so, this scene is no less powerful than the Fourth Ninja World War in the original work, when Temari led the Wind Style squad to perform Wind Style, airflow against the Ten Tails, and it is even more powerful. When a strong wind died down, the forest where Class 7 was located had become a mess. Uzumaki Naruto's 300 shadow clones have all disappeared, destroyed by the wind jutsu he himself performed. This is the strength of the last one. Uchiha Sasuke and Haruno Sakura were sent to the back by the shadow clone and used a towering tree as a cover. They looked at the devastated forest with trembling eyes. Obviously, Uchiha Sasuke didn't expect Uzumaki Naruto's strength to be so powerful. You must be kidding, Naruto is so powerful. Haruno Sakura also covered her mouth, her eyes full of disbelief. Due to the mission in Wave Country, they did not meet Momochi Zabuza. Uchiha Sasuke and Haruno Sakura's impression of Uzumaki Naruto is still at the stage where he was toyed by Hitaki Kakashi and scared by the Demon Brothers. The only bright spot is his huge chakra, and I don't know where he learned the technique of multiple shadow clones. Unexpectedly, Uzumaki Naruto actually possesses the power to create natural disasters. If he is the last one in the class, then what is the point of her being an excellent student? It turns out she is the weakest person in the team. Ha ha ha! At this moment, a loud laugh reached their ears. Look in the direction where the sound comes from. On a fallen tree, Uzumaki Naruto put his hands on his hips, laughed proudly, and said, "Now you know how powerful I am. This is my true strength. No matter if it's Izayoi, Hinata, Sasuke, or the guy with thick eyebrows, they will all be defeated by me." That was a great combo. You almost killed me. Suddenly, a voice sounded in Uzumaki Naruto's ears, and his laughter stopped abruptly. Before Uzumaki Naruto could turn his head or instantly distance himself, two huge snakes tied up his body like ropes, leaving only his belly exposed. Then an unharmed figure slowly emerged from the ground and gave him a teasing smile. "Damn it, let me go now." Uzumaki Naruto continued to struggle, and his eyes unknowingly turned into red vertical pupils. Seeing those eyes, Orochimaru smiled and said, "As expected, it's you, little brat." "What do you mean it's me? What are you talking about?" Uzumaki Naruto shouted, "If you have the guts, let me go and we can fight again openly." Hihi Orochimaru smiled and said, "If you hadn't used that combination of skills just now, I wouldn't mind playing with you. But now you should be quiet." After saying that, Orochimaru lifted up Uzumaki Naruto's clothes with one hand, and the 5 fingers of his other hand were wrapped with blue chakra flames, which formed the 5 characters of wind, fire, water, earth, and thunder. "Let go of Naruto." At this time, Uchiha Sasuke's voice came from far away, and his figure appeared out of thin air next to Orochimaru and kicked him. Unfortunately, his speed was still a little slow. 5 elements seal. Orochimaru's 5 fingers were like claws, and he struck Uzumaki Naruto on the stomach with one palm, while raising his other hand to block Uchiha Sasuke's kick to the calf. Uzumaki Naruto was knocked away by a palm, and Orochimaru was kicked away by Uchiha Sasuke. Fire style, great dragon fire technique. Uchiha Sasuke took advantage of the victory and quickly formed seals with his hands, spitting out a flame that grew into a fire dragon and roared towards Orochimaru. Orochimaru, who had already landed, looked at Uchiha Sasuke's double Magatama Sharingan through the fire dragon, his eyes full of greed. At this moment, he seemed to be back in the past, secretly watching Uchiha Itachi training. With such a speed, and at this age, he has already opened the double Magatama Sharingan. Perhaps this young man is not much inferior to his brother. He must get a body like this. So, Orochimaru quickly formed a seal, Earth style, Earth flow wall. With a loud bang, a thick and wide wall rose from the ground and blocked the roaring fire dragon. Uchiha Sasuke, who had already used lightning chakra to stimulate his cells to increase his speed, did not go around to the back. Instead, he took out a kunai, quickly cut off the snake that bound Uzumaki Naruto, and then pulled Uzumaki Naruto and rushed toward the forest. "Sasuke, where are you taking me?" The already swollen Uzumaki Naruto shouted loudly. "Put me down quickly. I want to teach that snake charmer a lesson." "Idiot, can't you see it?" Uchiha Sasuke cursed in a low voice. "Your level of wind escape can't hurt him at all. We are not on the same level as him." Hearing this, Uzumaki Naruto finally came to his senses. Yes, that's the only combo skill he has now. The opponent only needs to use the earth escape technique to burrow into the ground to easily avoid his attack. Where do you want to go? Uchiha Sasuke is very fast. If he runs away alone, it might take Orochimaru some time to catch up with him. It's a pity that there is a burden beside him. Before they left the site and entered the forest, they heard Orochimaru's voice. When they turned around, they almost scared Uchiha Sasuke and Uzumaki Naruto to death. Orochimaru's body was bent like a human snake, but he rushed towards them at the speed of an arrow. That horrifying face and ferocious smile, even if they escaped this time, would probably leave a big shadow on Uchiha Sasuke and Uzumaki Naruto. Multiple shadow clone technique. Uzumaki Naruto quickly formed hand seals, trying to create hundreds of shadow clones again. Unfortunately, his chakra is now extremely disordered, and he can only create about 20 shadow clones. As soon as these shadow clones appeared, they quickly formed seals, preparing to perform wind style. Great breakthrough again. But the next second, these shadow clones could only spit out a small stream of air, just like Uchiha Sasuke when he first learned the great fireball technique. "Hey, how could this happen?" Uzumaki Naruto widened his eyes and shouted in disbelief. "It's the sealing technique from before." Uchiha Sasuke broke out in a cold sweat, becoming more and more certain that this guy was definitely not a genin. Seeing that he couldn't even escape, Uchiha Sasuke threw Uzumaki Naruto aside, turned around, and rushed towards Orochimaru, shouting, "You're the last one. I'll buy you some time while you go outside to find help." "No, I will never abandon my companions." Uzumaki Naruto landed on the ground, stood up, and rushed over to fight alongside Uchiha Sasuke. "Hurry up and go. Now is not the time to be willful." Uchiha Sasuke shouted while throwing ninja tools at Orochimaru. This guy is not a genin. The movement just now must have attracted the examiner's attention. If you go find help now, we can all survive. Otherwise, you, me, and Sakura will all die. In that case, I will not abandon you." Uzumaki Naruto said with a firm look in his eyes, and then he formed a seal again and shouted, "Shadow clone technique." With a few bang sounds, several shadow clones appeared around Uzumaki Naruto, then dispersed and flew towards the outside of the death forest. As for the real body, it rushed towards Orochimaru. Little did he know that his loyalty would harm Uchiha Sasuke. Uchiha Sasuke, who has already mastered the basic method of using lightning chakra to stimulate cells, is even faster than Rock Lee, who is wearing weights. Combined with the Sharingan's insight, even Orochimaru would need to use the Great Snake style, ninjutsu, or earth escape to catch the opponent. Now that Uzumaki Naruto has entered the scene, not only can Uchiha Sasuke not move freely, but he also has to consider the safety of his companion at all times. Orochimaru also discovered this, so he changed his target from Uchiha Sasuke to Uzumaki Naruto. In just a few rounds, Uchiha Sasuke fell into his own trap, and both Uzumaki Naruto's feet were trapped by the ground that had turned into a swamp, and they were tied up like dumplings by the giant snake. Just as Orochimaru formed seals with his hands, stretched his neck, and flew over, preparing to plant the Heaven's Curse seal on Uchiha Sasuke's neck. Bang! A figure appeared out of nowhere and punched Orochimaru right in the face with such powerful force that it seemed as if the fist was about to sink into his head. Orochimaru's head was like a baseball and was blown away by a punch, and his body flew out with it. The person who threw the punch was none other than the latecomer Izayoi. Post views, 2 Chapter 63 Meatball Series, Gaia Energy Cannon, CH63, Izayoi. Looking at Izayoi, who suddenly appeared. Uchiha Sasuke and Uzumaki Naruto showed ecstasy on their faces, as if they had found savior. Especially Uchiha Sasuke. He actually felt an inexplicable sense of security in his heart. I didn't expect you to be so unlucky that you were targeted by this guy. Izayoi pulled Naruto and Sasuke out of the swamp with one hand each, and then threw them back to the ground. Uchiha Sasuke instantly grasped the point and asked quickly, "Shizayoi, do you know who this guy is?" I didn't know that before. I just sensed his chakra, which is not something a genin can possess. Izayoi looked at Orochimaru, whose head had returned to its original state and whose body had slowly stood up, and said, "But now, his identity is clear. He is one of the legendary 3 ninjas, and also one of Konoha's S-rank rebel ninjas, Orochimaru." It's actually him. Uchiha Sasuke's pupils shrank, and he looked at Orochimaru in disbelief. Why would a great man from history books appear here? I don't know, but he is targeting you with a clear goal. Maybe there is something he is eyeing on you. Is it for the Sharingan? Uchiha Sasuke understood immediately and asked solemnly, "Izayoi, what should we do next?" The hidden meaning is, now I'm going to listen to you, fight or run. It's not an easy task to escape from such a strong man. The only thing we can do now is to wait until help arrives. Izayoi looked at Uchiha Sasuke and smiled. Are you still capable of fighting? Of course. Uchiha Sasuke raised the corner of his mouth. And I, too, can continue to fight. Uzumaki Naruto emphasized his presence. Izayoi grinned and said, "In that case, let us experience the power of the legendary ninja." At this time, Orochimaru was also looking at Izayoi and praised him. I didn't expect that in this generation, besides the last descendant of the Uchiha and that brat, there would be such an outstanding boy. Konoha is indeed the cradle of geniuses, but now, I don't have time to play house ninja games with you. After saying this, Orochimaru once again used the Great Snake Style's instant body movement and rushed towards Izayoi and the other 2. Just as Izayoi said, he was in a hurry and had to plant the Heaven's Curse seal on Uchiha Sasuke before the rescue team arrived. However, Orochimaru, who only focused on Uchiha Sasuke, obviously did not expect that a monster would appear among this new generation. His figure just rushed out when Izayoi's figure disappeared from the 3-person group in front of him. As if teleporting, Izayoi appeared out of nowhere in front of Orochimaru, holding a kunai in his hand, with strands of electric arcs stabbing towards Orochimaru's head. Seeing this scene, Orochimaru's pupils shrank slightly. A familiar way of moving, but the speed is even more amazing than Uchiha Sasuke. At the same time, Orochimaru opened his mouth and spit out a sword blade without delay, stretched it out to break Izayoi's kunai, and tried to pierce Izayoi's neck. This way of dealing with things is unprecedented. If you don't know the intelligence, you might be ambushed. However, just as the sword broke the kunai, Izayoi disappeared. What caught Orochimaru's eyes was Uchiha Sasuke leaping into the air, spewing a wisp of flame from his mouth, and quickly turning into a huge fire dragon. Fire style, great dragon fire technique. Uchiha Sasuke has a much greater amount of chakra than the original character. Under Izayoi's training, he prefers and is better at using the great dragon fire technique than the great fireball technique. Looking at the flying fire dragon, Orochimaru did not dodge or evade, allowing the fire dragon to devour him. In the flames, Orochimaru's body turned into a pool of liquid. This is a clay stand. Uchiha Sasuke's expression changed slightly in the air. After landing, he stared at the ground, with the Magatama in his eyes spinning wildly, fearing that Orochimaru would emerge from the ground again like before. Whoosh! At this time, a sound of breaking through the air was heard. A huge python suddenly shot out from behind a fallen tree, opened its bloody mouth, and tried to swallow Uchiha Sasuke into its stomach. Uchiha Sasuke sneered. Then his figure disappeared out of thin air and appeared under the python. He kicked the python on the head and violently closed its open mouth. But the next second, Uchiha Sasuke's expression changed suddenly. Suddenly, the python's abdomen burst, and a figure emerged. It stretched out its palm and turned into a group of snakes. The lurking snake hand. This kind of surprise attack caught Uchiha Sasuke off guard. He had just used the Shadow Dance Leaf and had not yet finished the move, so he could only watch as the group of snakes were about to tie him up. At this moment, the voice that made him feel safe sounded again. Wind style, wind cutting technique. Izayoi and the transparent white wind blade appeared almost out of thin air. The incredibly sharp wind blade not only cut off the group of snakes in an instant, but also split the huge python into two. "It's you again, little brat." Seeing that Izayoi was once again preventing him from planting the cursed seal, Orochimaru instantly became unhappy. Just when he was about to teach Izayoi a lesson, his expression changed slightly. Izayoi, who had just swung out a wind blade, retracted his hand into his sleeve and suddenly opened his mouth and spit out a flame, which engulfed Orochimaru, who had just emerged from the python's belly and had no time to perform a substitution technique or earth escape. Orochimaru, engulfed in flames, let out a miserable cry. Izayoi took advantage of the victory and jumped several meters into the air. "Sasuke, back off." Izayoi spoke as a reminder, then raised his hands. A blue energy ball immediately appeared between his hands, rapidly expanding like a balloon. Uchiha Sasuke quickly disappeared. When he appeared, he had already come to Uzumaki Naruto, who was watching the performance of Izayoi and Uchiha Sasuke in amazement. Before he could pull Uzumaki Naruto behind a tree to hide, he heard Izayoi's voice. "Gaia Energy Cannon." When he turned around, he saw Izayoi holding a huge energy ball that was spinning at super high speed. This energy ball was originally blue on the outside and white on the inside, but the next second, the white inside was replaced by orange-red, and then the entire energy ball turned into a big fireball. Its size is not much different from that of a fireball, but contains energy that is countless times more powerful than that of a fireball. With a loud shout, Izayoi threw the orange-red energy ball downwards. Boom! A deafening explosion echoed throughout half of the Death Forest. The special Jonin and Jonin that had intervened in this exam, and even the ninja units that were dispatched by the ANBU, saw a huge fire tornado raging above the forest ahead, taller than the trees. What a terrifying fire style. Is it a combined ninjutsu with wind style added? Even the all-round Jonin who had mastered at least 2 types of nature transformations was shocked by this scene. First, a large-scale wind jutsu, and then this level of fire jutsu. Could it be that someone is fighting with Orochimaru? Thinking of this possibility, some ninjas' expressions changed again. If that's the case, doesn't that mean there are monsters in this year's Chunin exam? Post views. 2 Chapter 64, the second exam ends. CH 64. This the ninjutsu that Izayoi developed herself? Uchiha Sasuke and Uzumaki Naruto hid behind a fallen towering tree, looking at the fire tornado spinning like a gyroscope, their eyes filled with horror. Gurgle Uzumaki Naruto swallowed his saliva and said in a trembling voice, "Wow, so awesome. I thought that my multiple shadow clone technique plus wind style breakthrough was already extremely powerful." Unexpectedly, in addition to him, Izayoi also mastered a very large-scale ninjutsu, and there is no need to rely on shadow clones or even to cast hand seals. This is simply not on the same level. Uzumaki Naruto's heart, which had just expanded, was instantly reduced to its original state. Walk. At this time, Izayoi also appeared behind Uchiha Sasuke and Uzumaki Naruto and pulled the two away instantly. Not long after the 3 of them left, a figure emerged from the ground not far away, his body covered with burn marks. It was Orochimaru. Orochimaru made a vomiting sound, and his mouth seemed to be torn apart and open like a bucket. Then a body covered in mucus crawled out of the mouth. "Damn little devil, you ruined my good thing." Using the snake-style substitution technique, Orochimaru spat out a new body. He cursed hoarsely at first, then grinned and said, "But that kind of chakra and the speed of casting the technique is really an amazing talent." Looking at the fire tornado that was beginning to wreak havoc on the forest and would set the forest on fire if no one stopped it, Orochimaru added, "What a familiar jutsu." I never thought that the jutsu that Minato and that idiot hadn't perfected would be accomplished by a new generation. It looks like the windmill of Konoha, which has been stationary for many years, is about to start turning again. Orochimaru looked in the direction where Izayoi and the other two left, then looked in a certain direction, and then said to himself with an evil smile, "If it's mine, it won't run away. Sasuke-kun, your body will definitely be mine." After saying this, Orochimaru's body slowly sank into the ground and left the forest of death. Soon, a large number of figures suddenly appeared in the forest. There are A and BU wearing cloaks and cat-faced masks. There are special Jonin and Jonin who wear green vests. "Are you late?" Mitarashi Anko's expression was uncertain. "Put out the fire quickly." The rest of the ninjas worked together to use water jutsu to extinguish the fire tornado. On the other side, after Izayoi and the other two left, they immediately went to pick up Haruno Sakura, who was hiding, and then flew 2 or 3 miles in an instant before stopping. Class 7 leaned against a tree, gasping for breath. That Orochimaru didn't catch up with us, did he? Uchiha Sasuke still looked at Izayoi uneasily. "Don't worry, they're not chasing us. The rescue team is here." Izayoi gave Team 7 a reassurance. Upon hearing this, Class 7 breathed a sigh of relief. Haruno Sakura collapsed on the ground, terrified. Why would the legendary ninja target us? This is too unlucky. TSK, if that guy didn't know how to use Earth Escape, I would have defeated him already. Uzumaki Naruto said stubbornly. Only Uchiha Sasuke looked solemn. After all, he knew that the other party might have come for him. Uchiha Sasuke shuddered at the thought of being targeted by such a big shot. This time he was lucky enough to escape because of Izayoi's presence. But what about next time? What about next time? As if seeing Uchiha Sasuke's inner panic, Izayoi patted his shoulder and comforted him with a smile. "Don't be nervous, after all. It is the village that should be nervous. S-rank rebel ninjas are the most dangerous people in the ninja world. Even the big ninja villages dare not underestimate them." Such an important figure suddenly appeared in Konoha. Lord Hokage will definitely gather the strength of the entire village to find him. During this period, the village's security capabilities will be improved to the extreme. After the exam is over, you should not go home. Live in the Central Street first, and wait until the village has resolved the issue of Orochimaru before returning. Hearing this, Uchiha Sasuke suddenly felt relieved and nodded heavily. "Yes, I understand." After recovering, Izayoi and Team 7 headed towards the center tower. On the way, Uzumaki Naruto approached Izayoi and asked curiously, "Izayoi, that fire tornado you just did, is it the ninjutsu your mentor taught you?" "No, that's a ninjutsu I developed myself." Izayoi shook his head. "What? He actually developed this ninjutsu himself. Amazing." Uzumaki Naruto and Haruno Sakura exclaimed in surprise. Uchiha Sasuke seemed to remember something. His expression changed slightly, and he said, "Is this the ninjutsu you perfected? Isn't it lightning release?" "Of course not." Izayoi smiled meaningfully and said, "Gaia Energy Cannon is just a semi-finished product that I developed while I was perfecting the secret technique." "What?" Class 7 exclaimed again. Haruno Sakura smacked her lips and said, "That fire tornado isn't even in its complete form yet." Gurgle Uzumaki Naruto and Uchiha Sasuke swallowed their saliva, feeling that a huge gap had appeared between themselves and Izayoi again. Even a semi-finished product has such power. They dare not imagine how powerful Izayoi's secret will be once it is completed. At the same time, Uchiha Sasuke looked at Izayoi with a look full of heat. The ninjutsu that can be called the ultimate ninjutsu is the S-level ninjutsu. If he could learn the S-level ultimate ninjutsu, he might be able to kill that man. But how can he ask Izayoi to teach him the ultimate ninjutsu? Even if I don't teach him the secret, the Gaia Energy Cannon, just now, was also very good. After all, he also has fire attribute. Thinking of this, Uchiha Sasuke decided to find a way to please Izayoi after the exam. After using the Samsara to lock onto Orochimaru's position and confirming that he had really given up on placing the curse seal on Uchiha Sasuke in the Forest of Death. Izayoi separated from Team 7 to meet up with Hinata and Aburame Shino and enter the central tower. Uchiha Sasuke, who was not cursed, was only strong enough in the Forest of Death. His only opponents were Kabuto Yakushi, who had hidden his strength, Gaara, Rock Lee, and Niji Hyuga. As for the other candidates, none of them are a match for Uchiha Sasuke. At this rate, Team 7 should be able to reach the central tower in no time. This is indeed the case. Fearing that Orochimaru would come looking for them again, Team 7 did not rest for almost a quarter of an hour and went to look for the team that possessed the Scroll of Heaven. After snatching the opponent's Scroll of Heaven, they rushed to the central tower without stopping and reported to the shadow clone of Yumino Irika, who appeared from the scroll that Orochimaru was targeting them. When it was officially confirmed that Orochimaru had returned to the village, undercurrents suddenly surged in Konoha, and the atmosphere became depressing. Many ninjas advised Sarutobi Hiruzen to end the Chunin exam and focus on hunting down Orochimaru. However, since a large number of ninjas from other villages have gathered in Konoha, and invitations to the 4th Kazekage and the dignitaries have already been sent out, it is impossible to stop the Chunin exam. Therefore, Sarutobi Hiruzen could only send ninjas and Umbu to search in secret. And just like that, 5 days later, the second exam officially ended. Post views, 2 Chapter 65, Uchiha Sasuke's Rival, CH 65, July 7th, Konoha 60, 3 p.m. The candidates who arrived at the central tower in advance and were arranged to stay in the dormitory to wait for the end of the exam received notification from the invigilator early and came to the lobby on the first floor. Class 8 is one of them. At this moment, there were 24 examinees standing in the hall, along with their guiding jonin. Just like what Mitarashi Anko said, the second exam will reduce the number of candidates who passed the first exam by at least half. There were 24 groups and 72 candidates, but only 8 groups and 24 people finally passed the second exam. Among them, Konoha's ninjas accounted for the vast majority. To be precise, except for Gaara's 3 siblings and the Tosh trio from Sound Village, all other candidates are Konoha ninjas. They are Class 6, Class 7, Class 8, Class 10, Might Guy's Class 3, and Kabuto Yakushi and his 2 teammates. You have done a great job arriving at the central tower on the first day. As soon as Yuhi Kurenai came over, she started praising Izayoi and the other 2. The gentleness of women is fully reflected. In fact, as a perception class, Class 8 was already slow because they failed to be the first to arrive at the central tower. So Team 8 didn't feel the slightest bit proud, and Izayoi and Hinata just smiled. At this moment, Izayoi seemed to sense something and looked towards the direction of Team 7, just in time to meet the eyes of Hatake Kakashi. Izayoi smiled and nodded at Hatake Kakashi, knowing why the other party was looking at him. Obviously, Kakashi Hatake is learning more about Orochimaru and has already learned from Team 7, who was responsible for the fire tornado. Before the candidates could chat with the guiding jonin for a while, Sarutobi Hiruzen and the examiner team for the second exam appeared on the second floor. Then all the instructing jonin went to the second floor stands and listened quietly to the third Hokage's speech. After Sarutobi Hiruzen finished talking about the Chunin exam, which was a microcosm of the war among the allied nations, and the third official exam, which would be watched by a large number of dignitaries and spectators, and that it was necessary to select a group of outstanding genin from the candidates who passed the second exam to ensure that the competition was entertaining. Gecko Gale appeared as the chief examiner. Ahem, I am the examiner of the third Chunin selection exam, Gecko Hate. Moonlight Gale coughed, then looked at the 24 candidates in front of him while checking the list on the file board, and said slowly, "Now it's only the preliminary stage. The rules are very simple. That is, the loser is eliminated and the winner advances to the official competition. The screen on the wall will display the names of the 24 of you in a moment, and then shuffle them all and match them randomly. Before the exam begins, does anyone want to give up? If not, I'll upload the list. I abstain." As soon as the sound of Moonlight Gale fell, Yakushi Kabuto raised his hand to give up. Except for attracting the attention of Sarutobi Hiruzen in the stands and some examiners, the other candidates did not pay too much attention to this scene. After all, unlike the original novel, the little cockroaches don't know Kabuto Yakushi. Ahem, what's your name? Yakushi Kabuto. Okay, you can leave now. Moonlight Gale used a pen to cross out the name of Yakushi Kabuto and asked again. There are 23 candidates left now. There will be one bye. Does anyone want to give up? Seeing that no one spoke, Gekahei took out a walkie-talkie and said, "Then I declare that the third round of the Chunin selection exam preliminaries officially begins." Immediately, snowflakes began to flash on the screen. Then the names of the candidates appeared one by one, as if someone was typing on a keyboard behind them. When the names of the 23 candidates were all displayed on the screen, the picture suddenly changed. Two big VS letters replaced the name list and occupied the center of the screen. Names kept flashing on both sides of VS. After a few seconds, the picture froze. Toss Anvil versus Akimichi Chuji. The candidates whose names have been displayed will stay, and everyone else will go to the second floor, stands to watch the game. Moonlight Gale said, "Come on, Choji. Don't lose to the ninja from the small village. If you win, let Asuma-sensei treat you to a barbecue." When he heard the word barbecue, Akimichi Chuji opened his eyes instantly and nodded seriously. Coming to the side of Kurenai Yuhi, Izayoi lay on the armrest, but did not look at Akimichi Chuji and Toss Anvil, who had already started fighting below, but looked at the jonin of Otogeikure village next to Sack Stirrup and Koto Hammer. Others could not see through the identity of this sound ninja, but Izayoi knew at a glance that the other party was Orochimaru. Izayoi didn't expect that even after Orochimaru failed to cast the curse, he still managed to sneak into the center tower to watch the preliminaries. If that's the case, then why isn't the first match Uchiha Sasuke versus Akadome Kai? Could it be that he just came here to watch the show? Or did he have other plans? As if he noticed that Izayoi was looking at him, Orochimaru cast his gaze over and gave Izayoi an evil smile. Izayoi smiled back and nodded politely, as if she didn't know Orochimaru's identity. At this time, the battle below has already been decided. Although Toss Anvil did not reveal the information like in the original work, Choji Akimichi still used the human bomb tank from the beginning. Akimichi Choji retracted his head into his body and covered his ears, and by some strange coincidence, he escaped being killed instantly. However, his combat experience was still far inferior to that of Toss Anvil, who had fought in small places. Just like in the original story, Toss Anvil dodged the impact of the human bomb chariot repeatedly, and then deliberately left a flaw to allow Choji Akimichi's body to get stuck in the wall. Then, through the water in the human body, a sonic punch killed Choji Akimichi instantly. Akimichi Choji has lost his ability to fight, and the winner of the first round is Toss Anvil. Moonlight Gale immediately announced the result. Seeing this, Nara Shikamaru and Yamanaka Ino both covered their foreheads helplessly. Asuma Sarutobi, who was holding a cigarette, smiled and said, "It's good that you are not injured. Choji is still very strong. He just happened to meet a type that can restrain him." After saying that, Asuma Sarutobi instantly went down and brought Choji Akimichi back to the stands without sending him to the medical room. The screen flashed the name again and soon froze. Uchiha Sasuke versus Sack Stirrup. "I'm looking forward to your performance, Sack." Orochimaru gave Sack Stirrup an encouraging smile. Yes. Sack Stirrup was so excited that he almost stood at attention and quickly assured, "My lord, I will never let you down." On the Team 7 side, Haruno Sakura warned Uchiha Sasuke, "Sasuke-kun, the guys from that ninja village seem to be using soundwave ninjutsu. You have to be careful." Uzumaki Naruto also held the back of his head with both hands and encouraged him provocatively, "Arrogant Sasuke, don't lose before you meet me." Uchiha Sasuke, who was about to go down, suddenly stopped, turned to Uzumaki Naruto, and said with a smile, "Naruto, I also want to fight with you." This time, Uchiha Sasuke did not call Uzumaki Naruto the last one. Uzumaki Naruto was stunned. His eyes slowly opened from narrowing into a slit, and he stared blankly at Uchiha Sasuke. Then an inexplicable emotion surged in his heart, making him tremble with excitement and get goosebumps. Post views 3 Chapter 66 The Brilliance of the Eldest Lady, ch 66. Uchiha Sasuke, I will definitely defeat you and prove my worth. As soon as Uchiha Sasuke came down, he heard Sack Stirrup on the opposite side say this to him. Uchiha Sasuke didn't understand why, but seeing a guy from a small ninja village so arrogant, he immediately sneered and said, "You should talk in your dreams." Well, you'll see. Recalling the information Orochimaru-sama had given him, Sack Stirrup smiled confidently. Are you ready? Let's begin. Moonlight Gale took a few steps back and announced the start of the second round of duel. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Uchiha Sasuke immediately took out 3 shurikens from his ninja tool bag and threw them at Sack Stirrup to test this guy's strength first. Jankon Wave. Facing the flying shuriken, Sack Deng neither dodged nor took out the shuriken to throw. Instead, he opened his right hand, revealing the hole in his palm, formed a seal with his fingers, mobilized chakra, converted it into air pressure through a special device, and then gushed out from the wind hole. The air pressure, like wind escape, instantly bounced back the flying shuriken and continued to roar towards Uchiha Sasuke with its remaining power. Looking at the sonic attack that was different from that of Toss Anvil, the contempt in Uchiha Sasuke's eyes disappeared. His black pupils turned into scarlet double Magatama Sharingan, and then his body disappeared into thin air. What a fast speed! Many candidates in the stands exclaimed in surprise. Some of the Jonin's eyes flickered, and they noticed something was amiss. However, Sack Deng was not surprised but delighted and shouted, "I've been waiting for you." After he finished speaking, Sack Deng squatted down and clapped his hands on the ground. Jankon Extreme Wave. All the chakra in the body was converted into sound waves, surging out from the wind cavity, turning into invisible waves that distorted the air and instantly flooded the entire hall. Being in the area, even Gecko Hate, who was a special Jonin, felt uncomfortable. He instantly went to the stands on the second floor, while his body was tense, ready to rescue people. The figure of Uchiha Sasuke appeared out of nowhere not far behind Sack Stirrup, covering his ears with his hands and a look of pain on his face. Catching Uchiha Sasuke's breath, Sack Stirrup immediately turned around, pointed his hands at Uchiha Sasuke, and the still gushing air pressure instantly blew Uchiha Sasuke away. Fortunately, most of the power of this move was used on the ground. Otherwise, if Uchiha Sasuke had been hit head-on, it would have been very painful. Even so, Uchiha Sasuke felt a surge in his body, and his head was dizzy. Just like how Toss Anvil killed Choji Akimichi instantly, the sound waves were passing through the moisture in the human body and attacking him from the inside. Looking at Sack Stirrup, who was showing a smug smile, Uchiha Sasuke gathered chakra with his feet, sucked the wall, and resisted the last of the air pressure. After the air pressure disappeared, Uchiha Sasuke formed seals with his hands, shadow clone technique. With 2 bangs, 2 shadow clones appeared on both sides of Uchiha Sasuke. The next second, the 3 Uchiha Sasuke disappeared out of thin air. Seeing this scene, Sack Deng instantly looked panicked, and then he repeated the previous tactics, preparing to cast the sky-slashing extreme wave at the ground to create a sonic field to trap Uchiha Sasuke. But he forgot that the battle of ninjas is a battle of intelligence. Although he had just gained the advantage in intelligence, he failed to seize the opportunity to kill Uchiha Sasuke instantly, and he had completely lost any chance of winning. Slashing Sky Extreme Wave. Sack Deng repeated his old trick, once again putting his hands on the ground and releasing air pressure and sound waves with all his strength. The invisible waves that distorted the air once again flooded the hall. Uchiha Sasuke's 2 shadow clones, which were moving at high speed and invisible to the naked eye, were suddenly exposed. He covered his ears with his hands and looked painful. Then with 2 bangs, it turned into white smoke and disappeared. Seeing that there were only 2 Uchiha Sasukes, Sack Deng's expression changed in shock. At this moment, a shout sounded from above. Fire style, great fireball technique. The hot air flow flooded down. Sack Deng looked up, and his eyes were instantly occupied by a huge fireball. He didn't have time to raise his hands to block it before the fireball engulfed him. During this time, no one came to the rescue, including Orochimaru, who had just encouraged him. As for Gecko Gale, who was ready to take action, it was to protect Uchiha Sasuke. Since the one in danger was not a ninja from his own village, he certainly wouldn't take action. The fireball blew a small hole in the ground, burning Sack's stirrup and making him scream in pain. Just when he was about to be burned to death, a stream of water extinguished the flames. "Medical team, come here, please." Gecko Gale, who used water jutsu to save Zack's stirrup, took out the intercom and spoke. Soon, 2 medical ninjas in white uniforms came over with a stretcher and carried Sack's stirrup away. From beginning to end, Orochimaru, Toss Anvil, and Gene Hammer showed no emotion, as if they didn't care about the life or death of their companions. This scene made many candidates feel chilled. As for the Jonin, they have a certain understanding of the Sound Village. This is a small ninja village where competition is fierce and the law of the jungle prevails. At this moment, the name flashed on the screen again. Soon, the list of players for the 3rd round of matches was finalized. Hyuga Hinata versus Kodo Hammer. "Hinata, come on." Yuhi Kurenai cheered Hinata. "If you win, I'll treat you to a big meal." Izayoi didn't say anything, but rolled up his sleeves to reveal a wristband-sized storage scroll. Then he made a seal to take out the camera stored inside, and smiled at Hinata. "Hinata, act cool. I want to take a picture for Hanabi to see." "Yeah." Hinata nodded with a smile, then slowly walked towards the stairs. Along the way, the little cockroaches were cheering Hinata on. Uchiha Sasuke, who was going upstairs, also spoke up to remind them, pay attention to their weapons and devices. They all use those things to create sound waves. Hinata nodded again, but the smile on her face was full of confidence. When they arrived at the hall, Kin Hammer, who had jumped down from the stands, was already standing on the left side of Moonlight Gale, waiting for a long time. Looking at Hinata opposite her, Kodo Tsuchigumo, like Karen, subconsciously felt inferior. But unlike Karen's envy, Kodo Tsuchigumi's eyes were full of jealousy towards Hinata. They both have long, straight black hair, but Hinata's hair is shinier than his. She also wears a kimono made of expensive fabric that he may never be able to afford in his lifetime. She is of similar age to him, but has a figure that is extremely unbelievable. Just by standing there, she has the aura of a young lady who makes people feel that she is out of reach. Whether in appearance, inner qualities, or even origin, Qin Shuei was absolutely crushed and were not on the same level at all. To be precise, they are not in the same world. That's why Qin Shuei was jealous and crazy. Why am I just an orphan? While the other person is a wealthy lady who is born with a bloodline limit. Why did I have to fight so hard to get the spot to take part in the Chunin exam? But the other party is just standing here so easily. I will cut her hair, scratch her face, and make her feel inferior. Thinking of this, Qin Shuei couldn't help but reveal a sinister smile on his face. No one knows what Qin Hammer is thinking. However, when seeing her opponent showing such an uncomfortable smile, Hinata's eyes gradually changed from gentle to sharp, and veins bulged on both sides of her temples. Post views, 2 Chapter 67. My wife is so handsome. CH 67. Round 3 start. Falling with the sound of moonlight and wind. Just as Qin Hammer was about to take out 1,000 bones with bells tied to them from her ninja tool bag and throw it at Hinata, casting a sonic illusion. Hinata, who was 2 meters away from her, seemed to move instantly and appeared in front of her in a flash. The speed is so fast that the body cannot react at all. Snap, snap, snap with blue chakra flames wrapped around her fingers. Hinata stabbed at Jin Tsuchigumo mercilessly. The amazing finger strength allowed the fingers to penetrate into the body through the clothes. The chakra penetrated through clothes and flesh and entered the acupuncture points, blocking the flow of chakra in the meridians and causing Qin Shuei excruciating pain. However, before she could scream, Hinata, who was attacking as fast as the wind, had already stabbed her with both hands more than 10 times in a row. Finally, Hinata slapped Kin Tsukiyu on the body. With a loud bang, A stream of twisted air gushed out from behind Ken Hammer. When the shock wave dissipated, Ken Shuei's eyes were lifeless. Blood was flowing from the corners of his mouth. He first knelt down on his knees, and then fell to the ground. "Thanks for your advice." Hinata spoke in a gentle tone, but looked down at Ken Shuei condescendingly, and the blue veins on her temples slowly disappeared. Snap! Snap! Snap at the same time. The sound of shutter buttons kept coming from the stands on the second floor. Izayoi, who transformed into a photographer, had a smile on his face. If he wasn't still young and their relationship wasn't public yet, he would have really wanted to shout out loud, "My wife is so handsome. What just happened? What was that instant body movement technique Hinata used just now? It was so fast, and she didn't even show any stiffness at all. Such a familiar way of moving. Why do I feel like I've seen it somewhere before?" The cockroaches were stunned, especially Yamanaka Ino and Haruno Sakura. Their mood now is the same as Kodo Hammer. They just feel that they are not on the same level as Hinata. On the Might Guy team's side, Hyuga Niji clenched his fists and looked unwilling. The eldest lady has become stronger again. In his mind, he replayed the scenes of his competition with Hinata over the past few years, from being evenly matched at the beginning, to being gradually suppressed by Hinata, and then to the final crushing victory. With that level of finger strength and chakra, one doesn't even need to complete a set of at least 32 palms to injure the enemy so badly that he vomits blood or even falls to the ground. Even if Hyuga Niji has mastered the Kaiten, he is not sure of defeating Hinata. Tintin, who was standing next to him, stared at Rock Lee, whose eyes were trembling, and asked, "Little Lee, did Niji's clansmen just use high-speed movement?" "It is moving at high speed, but it is different from mine." Rock Lee nodded, then shook his head. Might Guy explained with a smile, "It's a nature change. A member of Niji's clan, she has mastered the nature change of lightning escape. Just like Uchiha Sasuke before, she uses lightning escape chakra to stimulate cells to increase speed. It's really youthful." "I see." Rock Lee suddenly realized why Uchiha Sasuke's speed was so amazing. Obviously, he could only barely react at first, but he burst out with astonishing speed the next second. "I thought it was the ability of a Sharingan, but it turned out to be a change in the nature of lightning release." Yes, Hinata also mastered the technique of using lightning chakra to stimulate cells. The Hyuga clan is another branch of the Otsutsuki clan that remained in the ninja world. Although their bloodline has been diluted to the blue entry over the past 1,000 years, and their surname has become Hyuga, it does not mean that the Hyuga clan cannot use ninjutsu. The reason why the Hyuga clan only uses Kekiai Genkai and a Gentle Fist is because the Gentle Fist secret technique is most suitable for their Kekiai Genkai, which combines offense and defense, and is capable of both long-range and close combat. It can be practiced to the level of an elite jonin, so they don't waste time practicing ninjutsu. Izayoi is not as old-fashioned as the Hyuga clan. He mastered the technique of using lightning chakra to stimulate cells and immediately taught it to Hinata, who has lightning attribute, so that she can transform the instant body movement technique in a high-speed physical movement and increase her attack speed. Obviously, Izayoi was right. Hinata used lightning chakra to stimulate her cells, and her body instantly became motionless without any stiffness. Her attack speed was as fast as the wind, just like Rock Lee had unloaded the burden. This generation of the clan is truly outstanding. Sarutobi Hiruzen held his pipe, exhaled a puff of smoke, and chuckled. Then, his gaze shifted to Izayoi, who was checking the film, and his smile suddenly became playful. "It's amazing to train the eldest daughter of the Zong family to be like this. But how can you be with such an outstanding heir?" In Team 7, Hitaki Kakashi asked Uchiha Sasuke, "Sasuke, did you teach Hinata?" "No, it was Izayoi who taught me, and Hinata." Uchiha Sasuke shook his head. Uzumaki Naruto didn't know whether he was envious or what. He couldn't help but complain. "You really are Izayoi's little brother." This time, Uchiha Sasuke did not give Uzumaki Naruto a murderous look, because he was moved. "If I really become Izayoi's younger brother, would he be willing to teach me the secret technique?" Thinking of Izayoi's timely rescue and the sense of security he gave people, Uchiha Sasuke felt that having such a boss seemed to be a good thing. No one knows what the proud second young master is thinking. After hearing Uchiha Sasuke's reply, Hitaki Kakashi couldn't help but glance in Izayoi's direction, and his opinion of this chief student became even higher. It is indeed not easy to be able to surpass such a special new generation of civilian geniuses. A huge amount of chakra, lightning chakra to stimulate cells, powerful fire tornadoes, and unknown mysteries at this moment. Kakashi Hitaki seemed to see his younger self. At the age of 12, he not only became a Jonin, but also developed the Chidori. And the chakra is also amazing. Thinking of this, Hitaki Kakashi couldn't help but become curious about Izayoi's strength, and looked forward to the upcoming duel even more. Another person who has the same idea as Kakashi Hitaki is Orochimaru. So the battle between the Toss trio ended, and Orochimaru did not leave, but continued to watch the next duel. The fourth round of the duel will begin soon. Kin Misumi versus Kankuro. Kin Misumi is one of Kabuto Yakushi's teammates. Although she is a genin of Konoha on the surface, she is actually one of Orochimaru's spies planted in Konoha. Moreover, this spy is very strange. As if he is afraid that others don't know his relationship with Orochimaru, he directly uses the software developed by Orochimaru to transform his body. Every part of his body can stretch and contract freely. If it can be integrated with the Akimichi clan's multiplication secret technique, Izayoi is willing to call it the strongest skill that surpasses the 8 gates. During the fight, Kin Misumi was like a python and quickly tied up Kankuro. Unexpectedly, it turned out that this Kankuro was not a real person at all, but his puppet crow. By the time Jin Meiching realized it, it was already too late. Coming out from the bandages wrapping the puppet, Kankuro controlled the crows and quickly eliminated Kin Misumi, winning easily. Just like the battle between Saka Tamaki and Uchiha Sasuke, just now, their strength has not yet reached the Super Shadow level. The battle between ninjas is a battle of intelligence. If neither side knows each other's intelligence, then what is being compared is not only the power of the technique, but also tactics and IQ. It is obvious that Kin Misumi is far inferior to Kankuro in this regard. Post views. 2 Chapter 68 Izayoi's rival, CH68. In the 4 rounds of confrontation, almost all of them ended in an instant kill. In less than 10 minutes, the qualifiers reached the 5th round. This round of confrontation finally became long, so long that many people couldn't help yawning. Because the list of opponents for this round is Yamanaka Ino versus Haruno Sakura. Just like Uzumaki Naruto mastered the wind style, great breakthrough, Haruno Sakura has also made considerable progress compared to the original work. But that's all. She learned an illusion from Hitaki Kakashi, the D-level difficulty Narukami Jutsu, which can make the opponent see the most fear-inducing scene. During the survival drill, Haruno Sakura was killed instantly by this illusion used by Kakashi Hitaki. If the opponent was Minako, perhaps Haruno Sakura would have won. Unfortunately, her opponent is Yamanaka Ino, who is skilled in the secret technique of Indun. The Naraku viewing technique was easily broken by Yamanaka Ino. Similarly, although Yamanaka Ino is the heir to the secret ninja clan, she has mastered the Yamanaka clan's mind transfer technique. However, the Yamanaka clan's position is auxiliary, and the heart-turning technique has no attack power. Although she successfully ambushed Sakura Haruno and took over her body with the mind transfer technique, she was driven out by the second personality inside Sakura Haruno. An illusion was restrained, a family secret technique was restrained. This pair of former best friends seemed like natural enemies, and could only use the basic knowledge they learned in the ninja school to decide the winner. 3 body techniques, shuriken throwing, kunai hand-to-hand combat, taijutsu duels. The 2 girls have a very good foundation and are absolute top students. But in the eyes of the Jonin, it was just like those kids playing ninja games, very boring. Even Izayoi and the others felt that these 2 were too weak. Only Minako resonated with the situation, realizing that these top students were just like her. In the end, just like in the original novel, the 2 women fainted from exhaustion and missed the official competition. By the time they woke up, the fight had reached the 9th round. The 6th round of the match is between Tintin and Temari. This was a crushing battle. Tintin, whose attributes were restrained by Temari, had no power to resist the opponent's wind escape. The 7th round match is between Nara Shikamaru and Sawano Geniki. The latter is one of Inuzuka Kiba's teammates. Like Haruno Sakura, he comes from a ninja family. His father is an ordinary chunin with a surname. Geniki Sawano's strength is also very good, and he has mastered a sea-level water-style technique, Water Wave. Although this move is a basic water-style ninjutsu, its usage is flexible and varied. If the chakra is huge, the effect is no less than that of the B-level water-style water array wall. Unfortunately, he has too little combat experience, and his IQ is far lower than that of Nara Shikamaru. The result appeared the moment he used water jutsu, spit out water, and made Nara Shikamaru disappear from his sight. Nara Shikamaru first took out a kunai and put it in his mouth, then used the shadow imitation technique to freeze Sawano Geniki, took out the kunai from his mouth, and Sawano Geniki voluntarily admitted defeat. Geniki Sawano had just been defeated, and the 8th round was Minako's turn to fight against Niji Hyuga. Seeing that her opponent was a powerful family in Konoha and the top student of the previous class, Minako didn't even go through the motions and just raised her hand to admit defeat. The 9th round of the duel is Uzumaki Naruto versus Inuzuka Kiba. Great, it's that idiot, yeah. I'm definitely going to win. Seeing the name of his opponent, Uzumaki Naruto immediately put his foot on the armrest and shouted excitedly. Inuzuka Kiba, who also had a happy face, suddenly shouted with a frown on his face. Idiot Naruto, I should have said that. Arriving at the hall, Inuzuka Kiba looked at Uzumaki Naruto arrogantly and said, Last place man, if you say something nice to me now, I will let you lose with dignity. Or you can just admit defeat. In Inuzuka Kiba's eyes, Uzumaki Naruto was no different from a few months ago. Facing the combined forces of himself and Akamaru, they would definitely be defeated. However, Uzumaki Naruto also showed an arrogant smile and said, Look, I will kill you in one move. Ha ha ha, you defeated me in one move? You're still asleep, aren't you? Inuzuka Kiba couldn't help but burst into laughter and then said to Akamaru, Akamaru, let's teach this loser a lesson. Woof. Akamaru barked in response. Round 9 begin. As soon as the sound of Moonlight Gale fell, Uzumaki Naruto immediately formed a rune seal and shouted, Shadow Clone Technique. After a few days, Uzumaki Naruto, who was sealed with the 5 elements, no longer had his chakra as disordered as before. Although it is not possible to create hundreds of shadow clones instantly, it is still easy to create double-digit shadow clones. Bang, 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 a crisp sound was heard, and puffs of white smoke appeared out of nowhere. When the smoke dissipated, 20 or so Uzumaki Naruto had surrounded Inuzuka Kiba and Akamaru. Is this the shadow clone technique? Why are there so many of them? Inuzuka Kiba looked shocked. Like him, the Jinin and even the Jonin on the 2nd floor stand were also shocked. Especially the knowledgeable Jonin. They immediately recognized that this was not a simple shadow clone technique, but the multiple shadow clone technique that was listed as a forbidden technique. Wind escaped before Inuzuka Kiba could recover from his shock. Uzumaki Naruto and his shadow clones had already formed seals with their hands. Seeing his handprints, the expressions of those Jonin changed slightly again, and they had already seen the next scene. By the time Inuzuka Kiba reacted, Uzumaki Naruto and his shadow clones had already called out the name of the technique. Big breakthrough. Woo woo woo, the sound of howling wind was heard, and the materialized airflow, like a giant hand that could be seen but could not be touched, grabbed the bodies of Inuzuka Kiba and Akamaru and threw them into the air. Then, hands appeared out of thin air and tossed the man and the beast around in the air, as if they were inside a tornado. Even the candidates and Jonin on the 2nd floor stands were affected, with the former tightly grasping the handrails or hugging the railings, unable to open their eyes at all, while many of the latter also put their hands in front of their eyes. When the guiding Jonin of Team 6 saw Inuzuka Kiba and Akamaru spinning at high speed in the air and about to hit the wall. He quickly jumped over to catch them, ending the fight. Round 9. The winner is Uzumaki Naruto. With his feet firmly glued to the ground and his hands blocking the moonlight breeze in front of his eyes, he immediately announced the result. "Ha, idiot ya. Now you have seen how powerful I am." Uzumaki Naruto put his hands on his hips and laughed arrogantly. Uzumaki Naruto feels so happy now after successfully defeating his friend who once crushed him with one move. His heart swelled again, and he couldn't help imagining punching Izayoi, kicking Uchiha Sasuke, and the thick-browed man kneeling on the ground to admit defeat. The expression on his face, which was laughing with his head raised, gradually became obscene, and saliva even flowed from the corners of his mouth. It was not until the moonlight breeze reminded him that he came to his senses and walked back to the second floor, stands without recognizing anyone. The screen flashed the name again. When the picture froze, many people became alert. On the screen, it clearly showed Izayoi versus Rock Lee. Post views, 3 chapters 69 Izayoi versus Rock Lee. CH69, very good. Seeing that his opponent was Izayoi, Rock Lee couldn't help but clench his fists and shout, looking excited. He had wanted to challenge Izayoi before, but was stopped by Uchiha Sasuke. After witnessing Uchiha Sasuke's strength and his attitude towards Izayoi, Rock Lee became more determined to challenge Izayoi. "Now I have finally achieved my wish. Lee, go and bloom your youth." Might Guy patted Rock Lee on the shoulder and grinned. "Yes, Mr. Kai." Rock Lee stood at attention and responded. Then he grinned and a white light flashed. Feeling the strange looks from people around him, Tian couldn't help but cover his face. It was so embarrassing. Hyuganiji had a blank expression on his face and said calmly, "Lee, your opponent is not simple. His chakra is amazing, and he is also Miss Hinata's companion. Be careful." "I see." Rock Lee nodded seriously, then stepped on the handrail, jumped down, and landed with a somersault. Izayoi was slightly surprised to see that he was matched with Rock Lee. The next few rounds of duels were the same as in the original. Izayoi thought that Rock Lee would still face Gaara, and he might be matched with Akado Kabuto and Aburame Shino, or become the lucky one who got a bye. Unexpectedly, he faced Rock Lee. Thinking of the magical skill of 8 Gates Ninjutsu, Izayoi also became interested. Just as Izayoi was about to jump down, Hinata's voice suddenly came to his ears. "Izayoi-kun, give me the camera." "Good." Hinata took the camera from Izayoi and clenched her fist and said, "Damn it, watch me perform." Izayoi smiled confidently, and then, as if he had thought of something, he suddenly retracted his foot from the handrail, leaned close to Hinata's ear, and whispered, "I won. Remember to give me a reward when you go back." After saying that, Izayoi disappeared in an instant and appeared in the hall. Looking at the playful smile of Kurenai Yuhi, Hinata's little face flushed. She then raised the camera, covering her face, and looked for the position with the best light and shadow. "Izayoi, please give me your guidance." In the hall, Rock Lee took a starting stance towards Izayoi, his expression serious and his eyes full of fighting spirit. "Before we start, take off your burdens first," Izayoi reminded. "Although this is just a battle between ninjas from the same village, I will not show mercy to the enemy during the battle. If you continue to be arrogant, then when you are killed in an instant, don't show your unwillingness." "How amazing! You figured it out at the first glance." Rock Lee looked at Izayoi with surprise, and his fighting spirit grew stronger. However, thinking of the agreement with Teacher Kai, he still looked hesitant. "Lee, take it off." At this moment, Might Guy's voice reached his ears. Might Guy gave Rock Lee a thumbs up and said with a smile, "This is an opponent worthy of my full effort. I allow you to take it off." "Yes, Teacher Kai." Lee Luaka's eyes were instantly filled with tears. Then he sat down excitedly and began to remove the weight from his feet. What? The guy with thick eyebrows is actually wearing weights. On the Team 7 side, Uzumaki Naruto and Haruno Sakura were already stunned. Uchiha Sasuke said disdainfully, "It's just a few pieces of iron." But the next second, his pupils suddenly contracted. Boom! 2 loud explosions overlapped each other. A thick cloud of dust rose in a corner of the hall. When the dust and fog dissipated, the ground where the two iron pieces were located actually sank, and a large number of cracks appeared around them. Seeing this scene, all the candidates were stunned. This guy, Uchiha Sasuke, grabbed the handrail tightly, feeling a great shock in his heart. Even wearing such a heavy thing, this guy's speed was so fast that I needed to use lightning chakra to stimulate his cells. What is his real speed? Even many of the Jonin were shocked. Kai, this guy is too reckless. The corners of Itachi Kakashi and Sarutobi Isuma's eyes and mouths twitched slightly, and they were speechless for a while. Kurinai Yuhi, who didn't know Izayoi's true strength, said solemnly, Izayoi has met his match this time. Aburame Shino took her hands out of her pockets, grasped the handrails, and stared at Izayoi, whose expression remained unchanged, with eyes full of anticipation behind her sunglasses. I finally got to see the true strength of this top student who I have been studying with for 6 years. This little brat, could it be that he has also mastered that special skill? Looking at Rock Lee, who was jumping on the spot after taking off the weight, Orochimaru, who had not left the scene, was also very interested in this battle. I haven't felt this relaxed in a long time. After warming up, Rock Lee once again made a starting move towards Izayoi and said, Izayoi, this is my strongest state. Let's fight it out. Izayoi smiled and raised his index and middle fingers. Come over. Please give me your guidance. Please give me your advice. Rock Lee's opening move also became the seal of opposition. Seeing this scene, Sarutobi Hiruzen in the stands couldn't help but smile with relief. As if sensing the aura of the two, Geku Gale's expression also became serious. He held the file board in one hand and raised the other high, shouting loudly. The 10th round, Izayoi versus Rock Lee, officially begins. With a heavy swing of his arms, Moonlight Gale instantly reached the second floor stands, leaving the entire hall to Izayoi and Rock Lee, fearing that he would hinder their performance. Moonlight Gale is very fast, but Rock Lee is even faster. Before Moonlight Gale appeared on the second floor stands, Rock Lee disappeared and appeared out of nowhere on Izayoi's left side, attacking with a low-level kick. Konoha Whirlwind. The speed was so fast that all the candidates, including Gaara and even some special candidates, were unable to react. But Izayoi is the real fast boy. Almost at the moment Rock Lee appeared on the left, Izayoi turned his head and blew gently towards the kicking foot. Woo, the howling wind and twisted airflow not only blocked Rock Lee's kick, but also blew his body away. It was exactly the wind style, great breakthrough that Uzumaki Naruto had performed before. Seal with one hand, what a fast speed. The expressions of some knowledgeable Jonin changed slightly. In the eyes of the examinees and the Jonin, Izayoi stood there motionless, with his hands hidden in his wide cuffs. Then he predicted Rock Lee's position in advance, turned his head, and spit out a stream of air, which grew into an invisible big hand, grabbed Rock Lee, and threw him against the wall. At this time, Moonlight Gale had just appeared on the second floor stands. From the examiner leaving the scene, to Rock Lee attacking, to Rock Lee being blown away, the whole process took less than 3 seconds. It was just this period of less than 3 seconds, but it allowed most of the candidates to see the gap between themselves and Rock Lee and Izayoi. Uchiha Sasuke came to his senses and activated his Sharingan immediately. Even Hitaki Kakashi pulled up his forehead protector, revealing the 3 Magatama Sharingan in his left eye, staring at Izayoi and Rock Lee below. He had a hunch that these two young men would present everyone with a fantastic battle. Post views, 3 Chapter 70, Ninjutsu Genius versus Taijutsu Genius, Chidori Style, and 8 Gates, CH70. It's really strong. Rock Lee was blown away by the strong wind, with his feet stuck to the wall. He looked at Izayoi, who had a calm face.
No more novels? Take part in the voting. The most requested novels and those with the most likes will be chosen for publication on euroaudiobooks.com. There, I can upload as much as I want without the risk of receiving a strike. R18 novels and other content that exceed what is morally acceptable are only published on Patreon or the free novels page. Remember, the site is funded by donations on Ko-fi and Patreon memberships.